post office regrets.
Are you working?
That
What?
clock.
Well, yeah. My
You
program.
just get delayed payment.
My program's funded from a different source of money, so
Yeah.
I was one of the few that actually worked.
Yeah, my husband's funded too for
Yeah.
the near future.
What does he work for?
Corps of Engineers.
Oh. Over in Belmont?
Concord.
Oh, Concord, Virginia Road.
Yeah, exactly.
It's a nice office.
Yeah.
Okay, that clock, just so we know, is about 2 minutes.
It is fast.
Fast,
I've got
so.
7:28.
We'll go ahead and call this meeting to order for January 22nd for Littleton Conservation Commission. Let's go ahead and look at the minutes dated from January 8th. Does anybody have any corrections, omissions that they want to share with Amy?
I just had minor ones, and I already gave it to her. The little edits, typos.
I wasn't there, so I don't have any changes.
I
Amy,
thought they looked good.
Amy, I had one on the front page where it said Hartwell Avenue Conservation Restriction. Do we have to throw a street number on that, or can we just reference that as the meeting?
I mean, it's 8 properties,
Okay.
so it's, yeah.
Uh,
Actually, it's been called the Black Maple Conservation Restriction, but I don't want to call it Black Maple anymore because
Right. Okay.
they're
I just
almost
thought
out
that
of
if
it.
someone were looking at this, it might be nice to, or at least reference, you know, that there's 8 abutters.
Listen out,
Or
yeah.
whatever. So does anybody have any other corrections? Do I have a motion to accept the minutes as written?
I'll make a motion to accept the minutes as written.
Second?
Well, it's amended,
I mean,
right?
sorry,
Amended.
as amended, sorry.
Second.
All those in favor?
Aye.
Excellent. Okay. We'll go ahead and start with administrative discussions, 204-564, which is 85A, Hartwell request for a certificate of compliance.
Yeah, I went out there, I can't remember when, but all the posts are in, all the signs are up, and they got the caps on the posts.
Oh, caps.
Excellent.
Yeah, caps. They got the whole thing.
Wow.
So I think that was all you're waiting for them, otherwise it has been a stabilized property.
Okay.
It stayed within the limits.
Good. Okay. Do we have a motion to issue a certificate of compliance for 85A?
I'll make a motion to issue a certificate of compliance for DEP file number 204-564 85A Hartwell Avenue.
Who would like
I'll
to?
second it.
Okay. All those in favor?
Aye.
Aye. Any opposed or extensions? Abstentions? Anna or Andrew, while we're doing that, you want to give us a bylaw regulatory review?
Would Anna like to do that?
Anna, would you like to do that review?
Or we can skip it for another 2 weeks.
You want to, or just give us a
Yeah,
brief, how
actually-
you're coming in terms of the working?
Yeah, and actually, we'd like your feedback on specifically one thing that we worked on tonight, and that is if a pre-existing structure is within the 50, we were wanting to set a minimum percentage of increase that you can allow into the 50 for that structure, similar to that lady who wanted to put in a little triangle of extra, you know,
Yeah, I remember that.
an entryway or whatever. So we were thinking is maybe 5% of the already existing part of the structure within the 50, or 500, or less than or equal to 500 square feet, whichever is less. So and the question was whether we wanted 500 square feet, or whether we wanted 200 square feet, or 3 or 4, or, you know, what the de minimis amount
And actually, it
is.
occurred to me, we should also.
And if you want to define what the structure is, whether it's a, you know, it could be an outlet or grate or something, or if it's an actual structure. So I think it sounds like that might be a deeper discussion, because that would impact residential and commercial, so maybe we can come back to that when we have a little
Should
bit
we
more
say
time.
impervious surface? Or actually, it could be, although would that exclude, I know we've had some
Right.
balconies or whatever.
Yeah. Do you guys want to discuss it now or come back to it?
Why don't we come back to it?
Okay.
All right,
Sleep
so-
on it.
Yeah, right.
Okay.
Dream.
Next on the agenda is Durkee and Cooper Farm new owners. So we are going to move the Cooper discussion till after 9. And no, you said no new Durkee, right?
Nobody new on Durkee. There are two new owners, developers, or contractors at Cooper. It's going to be Doug Shaw and Mickey Jensen. So they know they need to come in. So.
Okay.
And Kyle Mann also has a lot there, but he's outside the buffer zone. So
Okay.
those are the three owners now.
Okay, Cooper Farm land donation?
That happened. So parcels A, B, C, and D have been turned over, and the deeds recorded at the Registry of Deeds, just to let you know.
Recorded, okay.
And you guys don't hold any of them, so
It's
we're under the bridge.
Is it turned over to the selectmen?
Yeah. So I'm not
Um,
monitoring anything.
okay.
Thank goodness. I thought some of it was agricultural, though.
Yeah, but I think they,
Did they do that too? I thought D was gonna be, or C or D was gonna be agricultural.
yeah, A is recreational, B and C is agricultural, D is open space, but it's all still under the care and custody of the Board of Selectmen. They may eventually get transferred, but that's where they are right now.
Okay. Next, under discussions, Cooper Farm construction update.
That's
We're
gonna
going
push
to
to the
table it
end.
till 9. Hartwell Ave, conservation restriction.
Nothing really new to report on those. Almost all the signs and all the posts are up, and the signs and the caps, except for a couple areas. The letters went out, and I asked them to report back with a restoration plan by February 26th.
Do you want to tell the commission about the 26th with that date, though?
Small possibility there might be a special town meeting. So
We may have to
They're just,
give
the
a
Board of Selectmen's
second
deciding
alternative
tonight,
date to that.
Okay.
and they're gonna email me, so hopefully we'll know by the end of.
What's
our
the
meeting.
next meeting after February 26th?
Well, we have February 6th or something like that.
After the 26th?
February 5th, March, it's like the first Monday in March, so it's right after.
So we would move them to the next.
Yes,
Okay.
so you would end up with just one meeting in February, because there's a holiday in there too, so.
Okay. Okay. All right, let's go ahead and open the 7:35 continued hearing notice of intent, 10-4 Pond Road.
Evening.
Welcome back.
For the record, William Hall with Stamsky and McNary.
William, if you want to just, because we had a couple commissioners that were at the last meeting, if you want to just kind of give us a back
Sure.
review from the discussion we had from the last meeting to where we are.
Sure. So, at the previous meeting, if I recall correctly, the change that was made there was changing the culvert so that now it's a open bottom culvert, and there's about 3.5 feet between that culvert that will be left undisturbed. And that was the major change from the that we had made for the previous hearing. And at the last hearing, the mitigation area was brought up, and whether or not we had to go with a 3-to-1 ratio. We did look it over, and it looks like we would go with the 3-to-1 ratio, so that is what we're proposing now. To make it a little easier to see this time, I've colored what we're disturbing over in the gray, and a little bit in between. It would be impervious over it, although it would be undisturbed through the middle. And then in the green is our mitigation that's outside of any resource area. So that's the 3-to-1 ratio, and that was the only change that was requested at the previous hearing. So if there,
Can you outline for the commission the vernal area?
yes, so the edge of the potential vernal pool is this olive. However, if it were to be certified as a vernal pool, the habitat area would go up to essentially to this blue line. There's some small sections where it would go outside, like here where the wetland sticks out a little bit, but for the most part, it's contained within the blue line, and that would be the habitat area. So if it were to be a certified vernal pool, we would be doing work within the habitat area, but not within the vernal pool itself. And we also, if it were a certified vernal pool, we wouldn't be coming with a plan that was any different than this. We're doing the best that we can with this crossing, and we're not taking shortcuts with it. And we'd come in with the same proposal that we have now if it were to be a certified vernal pool.
Sorry, could you go over what were you saying about that? Because I thought Amy mentioned that part on the left, the green on the left there. My left. This part
Oh.
here was already part of the habitat?
No,
Part of
she,
the
so
ISO.
the concern last time was this area in here, because it's within the ILSF, so we shouldn't be counting that for mitigation purposes. So that's why I've highlighted it in a different fashion to make it more clear what we're counting, and that this green area is the 3 times what this area here is.
Okay, and then, so this entire area is outside of the ILSF?
Correct, yes, the ILSF is the pale blue line.
So I think if the commissions refer to the notes of the last meeting, we had a discussion in regards to the storage mitigation within the ILSF and mitigation of the habitat loss of the ILSF or vernal pool. And the question would, for that to be outside of the ILSF. Just want to know how we've addressed that from last to now, and if we are, my recollection is that the applicant would like to have the order of conditions done in conjunction of, or actually prior to having the habitat certified as well. I know personally I'd rather have the habitat certified so that we know in terms of the area of migration as well. The commissioners, discussion.
Yeah, I agree. I'd rather, since we know of it, have it certified.
Amy, do we know anything further in regards to work within the ILSF and vernal pool area?
The ILSF regs are not like bordering land flooding where you have to do foot-by-foot compensation. It has to be outside of what is already 100-foot storage. So doing the storage inside what is already, making the bathtub deeper, as long as it's shown that you're not causing any lateral flooding, is an acceptable practice. But given that the bylaw has the wildlife habitat value for ILSF, that needed to be outside of the ILSF. So the only concern I had about with the storage was whether or not, if you're digging down within the existing ILSF, if you're hitting groundwater, in which case you're not creating any more storage.
Questions that you all have, or comments? I feel like the applicant's been in numerous times, so if we're gonna guide him, it would be appropriate.
I mean, if he is to certify it, and as we spoke, it's to be done in the spring, to be certified, then would that mean we'd have to extend the hearing until then?
Well, I think that's certainly what the applicant is here to understand, and how possibly this would change if the certified area expands as well. So.
Yeah, I mean, I guess that's kind of the crux of my question is, we have an order of conditions, and then the resource area is different from what we understand it, then what?
Exactly.
Dave, would you be able to speak to that?
Well, I know there's some concern about certifying it to see the migration areas, but,
That's what we're here to do, so.
right. Even if we wait to certify the project until the spring, and we know the migration areas, it's not gonna change the project or the path of the driveway.
But that means that you're 100% sure that you're aware of the migration area to date.
We're taking into account the likelihood that there could be migration across the driveway already by providing areas for whatever is migrating that way to migrate under the driveway, and of course, they'll go over the driveway. Having it certified isn't gonna change that.
Is that in white? And I guess one thing that you can't help but notice is that the driveway is basically right up against the vernal pool, so right at the edge of the pool and the habitat. And so it would almost be an unavoidable area if you assume that, you know, the wildlife's migrating in all directions. Why not pull the driveway off if we know that that's the boundary?
So
Like, is there a reason for that? Like,
Wait.
site-specific reason for that?
we're right up against the property line, so we're doing what we can within.
Oh, that's the okay.
Yeah, within what we have. So we have the minimum
Got
driveway
it.
width.
Yep,
and-
okay. Okay.
I mean, yeah, there is a potential for the vernal pool to expand and have the driveway go directly over the vernal pool area. That chance, but I don't know if that would also make a difference in the design.
Dave might be able to speak a little more to this, but if I recall correctly, there's a pretty defined ridge through here, and that's why you hung the flags what you did.
Right. The potential vernal pool flags, which define the area of the potential vernal pool, are at the highest point that you would have water, and you'd only have a little bit of water at that point. For the actual vernal pool, which requires water for 2 months contiguous during the breeding habitat or time in the spring, in all likelihood, the actual habitat of the area of the vernal pool is much smaller than what we have depicted there. And I believe your peer reviewer also made that comment when we were on site during the site walk.
Okay.
So I believe all the commissioners have been here through the hearings that talk about the intent of this filing, which is for a second home on the same lot,
Well, the lot would be split.
to be split.
Yeah, it would be an A&R lot.
I mean, could we approve it with a condition that they would have to come back in if certification alters
You would
the
have,
size?
Be too late.
you would have to hold, it would have to be conditioned that they couldn't break ground until after. Condition, I believe timelines on that, but at that point, you're in the spring.
What did the peer reviewer say about the vernal pool? I'm just having trouble remembering it.
The peer reviewer was only tasked to look at the ILSF calcs and whether or not it was bordering. That was the main
So
one.
they didn't make a judgment?
Yeah, so, you know, we certainly walked through at the vernal pool, and this, it was Chuck Heron, and I mentioned, like, you know, you might be called back to look at this, they might as well get it, at it now, so he
Yeah.
would have a sense of it. But we didn't go through it flag by flag. And we certainly haven't seen the second round of flags that went around the rest of the vernal pool depression.
We have or we haven't?
They're not.
I don't think so.
You did those in December before the snow?
Yes. Yeah. It was right after you asked
Yeah.
us to do that.
Yeah.
So we need to go see those flags prior to making a decision?
These flags do also, and that's actually something I brought up at the last meeting, they very closely follow the same elevation that's shown on the plan, which would be expected for that area to be potential vernal pool. So we start off between 90 and 91, and it's the same through all the flagging.
Okay. This is a new lot.
It's ILSF, not BBW, so the 50-foot no disturb area is
And it's just the-
specifically BBW and bank.
Okay. What's the commission's pleasure?
I don't think we can make a decision based on information we have. I still think, since we know there's a vernal pool there,
Okay.
it has to be.
So what would the commission like to do? Would you like to wait until you can see the second of flags, or wait until you have certified the vernal area?
Well, would you have to wait until the spring anyway to construction?
Yes, because really what we're looking to do is get this done so that he can go after his septic permit and building permit and anything else that he might need to do for Acton. So he wants to get that moving so that this isn't something that ends up as being in the fall or winter of next year. He'd rather have it be done or started during the summer. And if this does fill up like we expect it to, then there's really not too much work that they could do during springtime if this is going to be wet anyways. They'd have to wait till it dried out in the summer. But it's really just timing, trying to get the permits so he can start once it dries out.
So is it your intention, if you've given us all the information tonight, to close, or are you trying to keep the hearing open for additional comments?
We would like to be able to close the hearing if the commission were amenable to approving it.
You wouldn't know that until you closed and should have vote, or you can ask for input now, but I think from what we're hearing, and commission members, if they want to share, if they were to close, what your opinion might be, which is not usually your in best interest to close during these. But Carl, thoughts?
Well, I'm not gonna give my opinion on that, but my opinion is that I think we should keep the hearing open until we can have form of judgment on the vernal pool.
I would like to wait for certification.
I would agree.
I have a hard time making a decision without a, definition of a resource area, since we know it's coming in.
Especially since we usually need a final map of the site.
So I think we've given you some thoughts. What would you like to do?
So, could we continue it until we can look at the...
Yep.
Okay, so it sounds like we should be continuing it then.
Would you want to consider, a little bit at loggerheads here, considering getting a third party to look at the vernal pool depression delineation? Which may help on both sides, not obviously.
And it keeps the applicant moving as well. It's a good suggestion. Would you like to throw a date out so we're not just putting this into perpetuity?
For certification?
And for discussion for sidewalks as well, because we don't do it during, there can't be any snow cover. So,
It's hard to determine. I'd say March.
okay. So Amy, we'll leave it open and you can call back so that we can get back onto a... we
What's
can-
that first, is that March, was that first Monday in March?
5th or something?
Yes, the 5th.
Yeah, March 5th.
So what we can do is we can always put you on. You don't have to keep reappearing, so we'll know
Yep.
what the weather is, but we can always just
Yeah.
keep moving it on. Okay. All right, so let's go ahead and continue that for March 5th, but realistically, I think with the weather, it might be a little bit after that. Okay.
Okay.
But if we get a snow-free period,
Yep.
try to set something up before March 5th.
Absolutely. Okay.
So,
Thank you.
let
Thank
us
you.
know what's going on back there. Wood.
All right.
Okay.
In your experience, when do you start seeing laying of eggs and stuff in the vernal pool?
Usually as soon as you get a break in the ice. You can still have some snow on the ground. Wood frogs in particular like to get out there as soon as possible. But typically it's mid-March through the mid-May to the end of May when you have all the activity. You have to have, the reason you have to have 2 contiguous months of water, it takes about 30 days for the eggs to mature, and then another 30 days for the tadpoles or salamanders to grow legs and come out of the water. So without that water the whole time, there's a mortality rate sets in. But that's the reason for the 2 months of water. It has to have the 2 months of water. So for this one, March, I'd say mid-March would be.
So it's safe to start to get you on the agenda for beginning of March, sounds? Okay. Okay, great, thank you. 7:55, continued public hearing, notice of intent, 73 Hartwell Ave, R 17-57, DP 204-859, construction of a single-family home.
Hi, good evening.
Good evening.
So we're here with an update and some additional plans. Amy, do you have the colored plans that I brought in? The colored plans I submitted?
Maybe.
Yeah. So there's a couple things that a couple different aspects of the project, as you know. Last time, I believe we resolved the resource areas were BVWs, and we've come back with submitted plans with that in mind, and a narrative showing the restriction. We also have done the worked in with the restriction to put up the posts, the caps, and the signs. That work has been done, all the work that is really that can be done now because there's some property line issues.
Yep, which we discussed at the previous hearing.
Okay.
Yep.
So if, I don't know what the commission's pleasure is, we can go right into the new submitted documents.
Sure.
And talk about those?
Yep.
Okay.
There's more commission members down there, so if you want to, let's pass that one down there, so.
So you can see it's still, as a single-family house, we have the 50-foot no disturb shown. All work is proposed outside of the 50-foot. So here are the BVWs in blue, BVWA, BVWB, and the 50-foot right here. The 100-foot from those are right here. This is an off-site wetland, 50-foot, and then that 100-foot comes right in here and intersects this one. So the plan is to have a driveway here, coming around, staying outside of the 50-foot, putting a garage here and a 4-bedroom house here. Proposed septic system is out here. We have a tank and a pump chamber that's going to pump out to this leach field here. There is a reserve area that is designed in here. We're not building it now, so that's not what we're here about, but you do have copies of the plans that have been submitted to the Board of Health showing that.
Are you looking for waivers for Board of Health for that, or is that good?
That's good. The only thing we did ask for is we asked for permission to fill within 10 feet of a property line because it is just the road, it doesn't impact any neighbors, and we could reduce some of the wall out there, give it kind of more of a natural look than having a wall stick out of the woods. So, regarding the local bylaw, we meet the 50-foot no disturb, obviously, and I just had my narrative here. There it is. So some of the sections that apply is section 4.2 is the 50-foot no disturb, which we meet. The driveway comes all around. We have hay bales marking, I mean not hay bales, we have erosion control in the form of proposed straw wattles all around, delineating the area and preventing erosion. There's a sequence of construction which is on the plans here. It's in here, and that's outlined in the narrative as well. Section 4.3. So it says that we have to minimize the amount of coverage in the buffer zone. We're doing that. All we're providing is a driveway in the home. There's nothing else that we really need for right now. So section 4.8 says that we show the location of the siltation barriers, and those are shown on here. 6.1 shows that, states that the Massachusetts stormwater standards be expanded to apply to this project. While I think that's not really applicable and it's difficult to apply to such a small site, I mean, these were something that was put in place for large impacts. The standards as far as there's, no stormwater conveyances, there's no pipes that are being discharging directly. Peak discharge rates are being minimized by putting in dry wells to collect the roof flow. Let's see. Loss of annual recharge, again, we're recharging the water from the roofs directly into the ground, and the water from the driveway will be able to run off and infiltrate into the ground. TSS removal is not an issue.
Driveway's paved.
Yes. Land uses with higher pollutant loads, this single-family house doesn't have a higher pollutant load. Zone 2 or IWPA, it's not, the proposed work is not in either one of those zones. It's not a redevelopment project, so it meets standard 7. Construction-related impacts are being minimized with siltation barriers. Operation and maintenance plan, there's no BMPs that are going to require any type of operation and maintenance plan, and illicit discharges, standard 10, single-family home, so there's going to be no illicit discharges.
So does your 50-foot to the scale here, so I see your 50 here, is it all exactly 50 throughout? Or does that line with the driveway move?
Well, there's the colored lines there, there's 3 colored lines that I tried to show all in one.
Okay.
So underneath there is one 50-foot buffer zone, or 50-foot no disturb area shown, and the driveway and everything is outside of that.
So your erosion control is at 51 feet. So I'm trying to understand what is at the 50, whether your erosion control is at the 50
Yes.
subsequently through.
It's at the 50, everywhere until down in this area here, where we come away from it, and then all of this side, obviously it's not going to be
Okay.
50.
So when they're plowing, where will the snow go on that driveway? Over here or over there? And what do we propose at the edge of the driveway? Because I don't see any grading on that 50 of that driveway. It's hard to tell with the colors because they
Right.
are right on top.
Right.
So it would be magical if the driveway instantly stops and then there's hay bales, which doesn't always happen.
No, there's a couple feet in between there. The driveway is offset,
Okay.
and I can put some more spot grades in there, but it's a very level site, and there's no reason to go up or down, so proposed grades
We
are
want them to
existing.
go away from the 50, so it doesn't really up or down, so.
But we can't, we can't go any further than the 50. We're staying outside the 50, which is what the regulation says, so,
Okay, so I just want to be clear. So on here, because we can't see, so the hay bale's going on the 50 and then the work is on the other
yes,
side?
yes.
Okay. So how much grading is there from the edge of the driveway to the 50-foot? Like, where's the driveway? If the hay bales are on the 50,
Yeah.
how much space is in here with the 3 colors that you have there?
I have to break out scale. I know I kept it off there. It's at least, looks like at least 2 feet that's offset from the 50-foot. And there's nominal, when you say nominal grading, when you say grading, there's nothing coming up or down, so there's not going to be
So
a
the
lot of-
driveway is going to be
Yeah.
flush with the ground. So that it's not going to go driveway and then bank off. It's going to be level.
If there is a bank, it'll be 6 inches to a foot. I'm not saying there's no bank, but there's going to be nothing extreme.
Do you guys want to talk about snow storage and plowing that we usually talk about?
Sure.
Where are you?
But you want me to do it?
It's just a hint.
So yeah, so in terms of snow storage, do you see the snow being pushed like off?
It has to go to the side.
It's-
There's no way to not
it's
push it to
gonna
the
be off to
side.
the side.
Because otherwise it's not on the other guy's property.
Yeah. I mean, the only place it does get to be difficult is this tight area right here. Up here, it can all be pushed this way over here. We have area here where it can be pushed. And it's not gonna be snow removal where you're going in there with a backhoe and you're picking it up from here and dumping it here. It's gonna be, a little residential pickup plow coming in and moving the stuff to the side.
Right, but the discussion is salt, sand, everything kind of sliding that way over time. So I think that's why we always look at how do we mitigate the snow storage onto those points of interest that are on the 50.
I mean, chloride impacts into the wetland. Salt's not good for them, obviously.
Yeah. I mean, I don't think it would be a problem to restrict no salt and no sanding. I mean, I live on a common driveway that's, a couple thousand feet long, and we've never even thought about sanding or salting, and it's never been a problem.
Usually talk
Those
about
work.
that. Well, it's just so it doesn't get pushed
Yeah, no.
off. If there's an area that you think is of greater potential impact, set
Like
that
right
off,
here.
like allow that to go within, like right off into the 50
Yeah.
in order to set them after the driveway's in.
Oh, is this bumpy, is that the wattles or is that a stone wall?
Have to look at your regulations. I don't know. Which dash is which. I believe the green is
Oh my God, you
supposed.
followed
is-
that?
It's a stone wall.
No, there's no stone wall there, no.
Oh,
It's,
that's-
I'm sorry,
No, so the
if you
brown-
looked
brown
at
is
this
the-
one here, that's the erosion
colors.
control there.
But this thing here then?
The green, I believe,
No,
I
not
don't
the
have to
green,
say.
it's this thing, see
The-
this? Is
This
stone
one right
wall?
here, no, it's this right here, it's erosion control. It may not be exactly the same scale, but you can see it,
Yeah, this
you can
is
see it in here.
This is
Yeah,
bigger.
yeah,
It's-
yeah.
It almost looks like the stone
Yeah.
wall. Okay, so you're saying this is the wall?
Yes, yeah.
Okay. So I was gonna say, if there's a stone wall there already, maybe we don't.
Yeah,
Boulders.
yeah, no,
Boulders.
no. But, you know, if you have no sanding allowed, if you make a condition no sanding, no salting, and there's snow that falls on the 50,
But this is not
It's the-
something that the commission would come back and look at years from now. So we're trying
It's
to.
a tough condition to put in.
Yeah, it's
You
not,
can
it's
do it,
not,
but
it's not enforceable.
It's not enforceable.
Or it's not realistically,
So I'd rather look at some other measure.
you know, whatever. What are your thoughts?
I like the stone wall idea, not stone wall, but placement of
Boulders
individual
every day.
boulders.
Yeah. Where do
Or
you-
they could do stakes if it's too small an area for.
Stakes get
Stakes
knocked
aren't gonna
over.
last.
This is fairly level, right?
mhm,
Yeah,
yes, yeah.
it's-
Yeah.
I mean, I'm sure that during the excavation, there's some boulders that are coming up, and if not, I'm sure the contractor will know enough people to get some
That
boulders.
could be
brought
the
in.
last condition that after the driveway is set,
Yeah.
they can be placed. And you just have to make a condition of where they would,
Right, just
size of boulders
Right,
and.
and it wouldn't be along the whole length of it.
No, it's just
Be
areas
certain
of-
Areas, yep.
That's not stationary by any chance, is it?
Station, the driveway, no.
When the driveway.
Was really where the areas that you don't have a turnout.
Yeah.
I mean, you could, well, you could almost say, you can condition and ask me to show it on a plan and add, not, you know, approve the conditions until you see it on a plan, something like that. You could say from, 50 feet offset from wetland flag 3A to offset from 50 foot offset from wetland flag 7A, something like that.
Yeah.
And to come up with the size of the boulders and the distance in between.
Do you have a standard, I'm sorry, it sounded like you've done this before. It's,
Yeah, no, we have, it just depends, it's site-specific.
Okay.
So it's usually, because some are usually, they're mostly with banks that you're gonna push over as
Mm,
well.
mhm.
And you have some steep grades, so I would put that back to the applicant. But other than that, are there other questions that we have pertaining to this?
What do you want to recommend, a minimum of what the boulders are gonna be, just to make it like 3 to 4 feet and 6 feet on center or something like that?
A minimum size of?
If you want some general direction, and if.
Oh,
it
okay, I
turns
thought you
out right,
said they were
come
writing a
back.
condition there.
Well, or we could, but
Yeah.
I just wanna make sure you don't come back
Some
with,
basic
1 foot
guide,
boulders
basic
every
guidance, so
20
you're
feet.
not.
Well, no, I think, yeah, I think if you want to set a condition and then we'll show it on the plan, it kind of ties it in a bow.
This is 4, 8 feet, because the flowers are 8, so 6. Yeah.
That works.
Big enough to not push.
Yeah, not greater than 6-foot distance, and then determine the size.
I think we've put that in a condition before.
They're in some, but it's specific to sites.
Well, they've got to be at least 3 or 4 feet because you don't want to bury it in the snow and not see it.
Yeah, yeah. So we'll let you come back with that, and distance is not greater than 6 feet.
Okay.
But are there any other questions looking at this? So that would be the last task at hand?
Yeah, the corner of the basement slab, it looks like there's 2 feet to work between the straw wattle and this corner of the structure. It just seems a little tight.
It is. We left 2 feet because that gives enough room to excavate and put in a 20-inch footing and a 10-foot wall. The footing only comes, 8 inches outside the wall or so, and that gives you more than a foot to work between the excavated wall.
So your equipment is like over here or something?
Yeah.
'Cause
Yeah, so they set it from the back.
Yeah.
Yep.
Are there
Okay.
trees back there presently?
Oh, yeah. Yeah.
So one condition that we would make is that, especially where you're so close here,
Mhm.
is that prior to removal of trees in this area, that they would be flagged, and would flag the ones that are being removed.
Okay. Well, that's gonna be a condition, but yeah. Right,
I don't think you guys can know that.
Yeah.
Okay.
Yeah, so we'll be staking out and setting the erosion control, marking the trees based on that.
Yeah.
And then having a sidewalk.
Amy, anything else for the next meeting? So we meet again on February 5th, so we'd continue this to the 5th to have the new drawing in, and unless the commissions have any other comments, it would.
No.
Board of Health isn't finished yet.
They're the 13th. Do you wanna wait till after then?
Definitely.
Okay.
So we would move you to February 26th, but in the meantime, after you're done with Board of Health, please submit the new plan.
I'd also.
This new plan? Yeah. So I'll probably wait to see if there's anything that needs to be updated on this from Board of Health.
Yep.
And it's one at that time.
Yep.
I'd also check with, I believe potentially Dave Cowell's gonna do the turtle monitoring during construction. I would double check with whoever is gonna do that, or what was in the natural heritage permit, because I think Waddles aren't gonna do it for the turtle
Oh.
exclusion fence. Might need to add silt fence along the
Okay.
whole line.
Yes, he's coming up with a plan.
Yeah, yeah.
Okay. Thank you for mentioning that.
Okay.
Okay, so we will
We've
go
been in
ahead.
discussion with that, yeah.
Yeah,
Okay.
go ahead and continue to the 26th.
February 26th?
Yes, no butters.
Okay. Any comments? Any butters? Yep.
Nick Fasendola, Level Design Group, here on behalf of Mr. Phil Pittarino, who's with us, Director Butter to the project. Mr. Pittarino has raised some concerns that we just talked about the proximity of the dwelling to the no disturb zone. We understand that looking at it from a construction perspective, but with their permission to take a look at how the property will be used once it's occupied as a single-family dwelling. You know, essentially, the dwelling that close to the buffer zone, somebody came and walked around their property without getting into the no disturb zone. So, something that we'd like to take the commission.
And as it's also, so it's not proposed as lawn here,
Correct.
so, and no other structures, so we appreciate your comment.
We
but
understand.
We do have to go by what's on the plan as well.
And, you know, it's our opinion that section 6.1 of the local bylaw does apply in this instance, even though the applicant's representative made a statement that the stormwater standards should not apply. It's written clearly, 6.1, section 4, that any disturbance which creates more than 1,000 square feet of impervious cover is subject to complying with the stormwater standards, all 10 standards, which requires formal analysis, calculations, review of all the standards. A lot of these standards that were reviewed by the applicant in their narrative were made on vague assumptions, which doesn't seem to cut it with that type of regard. There's a few items, there is a direct discharge. The roof drains have a direct discharge that points right out to the wetland.
Actually, I thought it was
Right on the-
infiltration.
Well, it's infiltration, but as an overflow. And based on
Your dry well detail, correct?
Yeah.
testing done for the septic systems, they had really poor perk rates back there. There's a fail and like another perk rate that is like a 52-minute-inch perk. So really poor soils back there for infiltration.
And they're still meeting with the Board of Health.
But
Yeah.
I'm talking about
So about the dry well
the
infiltration.
regulations that the Conservation Commission's own bylaw,
Mhm.
complying with those regulations. It's something that we feel that should be addressed in more detail with any type of revised plans. You know, there's a lot of items on there that, assumptions were made that, you know, assuming that there's no increase in flow is impossible. When you take a forest and you take that area, then you make half of it lawn, quarter of it pavement, you're gonna have an increase in runoff. So, you know, those impacts should be evaluated. That's the intent of the bylaw here, where you require that evaluation for more than 1,000 square feet of impervious cover in the buffer zone. There's about 5,000 or 6,000 square feet of impervious cover, so well beyond the threshold for that requirement. So we think that the applicant should address those concerns that are outlined in the bylaw, and that the commission should look for the proper documentation on those items. That's about it for my client's concerns, so.
Would you like to address any of those comments?
Yes, it's up to the commission to determine how stringent these things are applied. I think, like I said, you know, applying the stormwater management standards is trying to fix a watch with a sledgehammer. You know, it wasn't created for this. We do meet the standards because when they talk about no peak discharge rates, it's peak discharge off-site or to a wetland. You know, we do have infiltration basins. If we want them doubled, we can double them. If they do overflow, and we can put an overflow on them, then there's no, it's different than a discharge, as saying a stormwater conveyance. A stormwater conveyance is more like a swale or a pipe that discharges directly to a wetland. We don't have that. If these do overflow, we still have 50 feet of overland buffer strip for them to infiltrate. Same thing with the driveway, anything over here. You have, if water comes off of here, then has 50 foot to infiltrate, which it also will not have any TSS, so that's one of the other standards. And I know I went through them quickly. So, you know, the increase in runoff, I think I think in this case, you can do a back of the napkin calculation because it is such a small site and it is small amounts of flow. So that, the rest of the two that I picked up from them was the overflow of the dry wells, creating a conveyance and no increase in runoff.
And you have in the past required like a Coltech or something like that for single-family homes for this, to meet this provision.
And also soils of where your dry well is proposed as well? With the, so the closest test pit to that's...
One's there. And then there's one here.
And you have the data for that?
Yes.
So,
I mean, yes, they weren't.
Discussion is warranted.
yeah.
The site was very variable. There was one place that we had a record of, I think it was a 14-inch. I unfortunately couldn't replicate that, but we did, I believe we had a 32.
So we do have data on the closest, on the two closest sources to share with us.
Yeah. I mean, it was all the same material out there. It's sandy loam. I'm trying to see where my perk rates are on here. So I have perk rates at 1 and 2, which is here.
What's your test over?
That's 5, and then 1, and then which was.
So what is the perk rate at number 5?
I don't have a perk rate. That's only a deep hole test at 5. This one down here was the one that was greater than 60, but we did have.
That's significantly
Yeah, but we did have 38 at deep test hole 2, which I have to pull a clean plan out. Oh, I can find it.
There's 2 dry wells, is that right?
Yes.
Yeah.
Are deep
Deep test hole
test
is
holes, are they,
30 and 38 minutes per inch for this, so yeah.
oh,
So deep test holes are.
are they to detect where groundwater?
Yes, yeah.
How deep was it?
Between 30 and 30 and 50 inches. See?
Yes, go ahead.
So that hole being 50 inches deep, put a dry well in there that's, concrete dry well as they're showing, they're 4 feet high,
A sump
about a
pump in the
foot
basement?
from the top of the structure to grade, so it's about 5 feet deep, it needed to be 4 feet from seasonal high groundwater. So I don't think that type of system would work. So all we're asking is, if the applicant isn't gonna look to comply with the regulations, they request a formal waiver from the commission. If the commission would grant that, that's their choice to do so. If not, make them apply with the regulation as clearly detailed in the bylaw, that they have to comply with the 10 stormwater standards and provide the proper documentation.
What is the commission's thoughts? Would like to have more information detailed for the next meeting?
I'd like to know what options there are with such a shallow groundwater there for dry well, whether you have other options that would be more effective.
Yes.
Well, we have basement,
Well-
groundwater dewatering and basement drainage, because I think that just shows roof drainage, right?
Right, right.
Dewater, groundwater.
Yeah, there are options. We can put in something that's not as deep and more spread out, like some chambers. I mean, we're ordering how many chambers up here? That wouldn't be that much more work to order in, the dozen chambers
Right.
to put them in there.
For
Another
cold tech,
infiltration
Like a
gallery.
cold,
Yeah,
like,
yeah.
go back to the cold tap.
Yeah.
Okay. Okay, so we've certainly exhausted quite a bit of time, so we're
Okay.
gonna, ask them to.
Would the commission want to see
enforce-
boulders around the back of the house, potentially, since that's so close? Or to keep it for the driveway?
Or just staking
or a
it
sign
the way,
or something.
yeah,
I
sign.
mean, the
Something
idea behind the
demarcating.
boulders was to keep for the snow, to keep the snow.
Right.
But at the, around the house, I don't think that's,
We've been using the stakes,
yeah,
4x4s.
right.
So maybe some signposts saying,
I think the bigger issue will be drainage and
Right.
infiltration, so to bring in source data on that as well.
I mean, there will be
Well, and
increased
grading
drainage
around it,
because
too.
of
If they have
the
to
trees
grade
being
here,
cut
that-
also.
So there's absolutely no grading from the height from the house?
No, same grade. It's just gentle slope down, the grading all. Yeah, I'm just showing you to see it tying in right at each elevation, yeah. Mm.
Is that house staked presently?
No.
Would the commission like to go out and see the stake points of the house?
That's a good
In
idea.
proximity? What would you like to see staked? The corners of the house, center line of the road? And that can be probably, you wanna do that before your Board of Health meeting?
Oh, yeah. Yeah, well, we get it done as soon as possible, let you know as soon as it's done.
But I think as soon as you
No
have
snow window.
the stakes there to let Amy know,
Yeah.
then we'll go out, so the commission will go out and look at any of the properties as long as there's not snow cover.
And maybe just put a couple stakes around the 100-foot buffer next to the house, just so we can get an idea of the
or the 50,
number
you
of
mean?
trees that are gonna be taken up.
50?
No, the 100.
I think is it entirely with 100?
I just wanna get an idea,
The
not
corner of the
to,
house is at 50.
I just like to get an idea of
entire
the,
house is at the end.
well, that's what I'm, no, it's not, it's just,
Yeah, because 100 is here, and the 50 is here.
The septic system's going to take out the rest of it, so,
Well,
the reserve.
no, because that's not gonna get built. That's not being built.
But what's your limit of work going to be? 'Cause you gotta
We're
get
still
roads
trying,
this
we
way
are
out,
trying to
so-
give them some yard, yes,
Yeah.
right. Yeah, we're gonna try and use that as some sort of open space.
So Carl, you want this
yeah,
100 foot?
that's what I was thinking of, that 100-foot,
Well, it'll
yeah.
be easy to come off the house. Okay, we need to keep going.
Okay.
Did you want to nab Mr. Peter Reno while he's here about the Hartwell Conservation, or deal with that later? We can deal with it later.
Are you taking this back?
What's that?
That's mine.
No, I'll leave it to you. Yeah. Get that red stamp on.
Thanks.
Anna, can you grab them for jerky?
I'm sorry, what?
Tell them to
Oh,
come,
jerky.
please.
Jerky.
So we should use,
I've got those.
so
Yeah,
this is
yeah.
what it
Thanks.
looks like today.
Not much different.
So the timing is moving down quite a bit through time.
Good evening.
Good evening.
Evening?
Evening.
And Brian, you've been bagged as someone who doesn't speak loudly, so AV has asked you to speak into the microphone.
Will do, will do. I have copies of the plan if anybody needs them.
Yes. Okay. Okay, so officially opening the updates enforcement order for Jerky, DEP 204772, 797 through 814. The discussion tonight is the,
culvert across Fraser Street. So for the record, Brian Gaudreau with Hancock Associates, along with Dave Guthrie, project applicant. And essentially what you have before you is the same plan that we had presented and discussed the last meeting and during the site walk a couple weeks prior to that.
It was requested that we add some additional detail to the plan to provide more context and just understand exactly where the pipe resides on Lot 11, how it falls within Open Space E, its relation to Wetland A and Open Space A across the, or excuse me, Open Space B, and that's what is before you. The actual design has not changed. Outlet and inlet are the same elevation as they were. The level spreader is still being proposed. The pipe still falls within the easement exclusively on Lot 11, and what we would be requesting tonight, hopefully, is for approval of this plan, so that Dave can get into his schedule, actually putting it in the ground.
So Amy shared, I just want this to go around and share it with the applicant, so current picture of the farm pond, and kind of the question is, and this is more for the engineer, is when we always make reference to the saddle and where the pipe is gonna be, now that we actually have a lot of water there, is it the opportune time to actually just go and say, okay, this is exactly where we think it should be, because I think we're all in agreement that this is really what hopefully we're gonna be living with successfully, and does it work? Now that we would know physically, old school, to go out there and say, this is where that pipe's gonna be, to know where that saddle is.
So if you recall during the sidewalk, we'd actually staked the inlet and outlet of the pipe as the
Right, but we did
proposed
not have
location.
water there at that time. So
So
we,
is this the water level that we're trying to accomplish?
We're trying to.
no, that's what we're trying to, we're trying to,
I
we're
like
trying
that
to,
water level personally.
that's a little high.
Yeah, it's a little bit higher.
Waterfront.
That's waterfront.
So if you look
Yeah,
at this
it'll
picture,
actually kill.
you
That's-
can see the stake that was kind of knocked over by whatever wildlife. There's this orange dot right here, and that's the location of the pipe.
So you think that would be the level then?
No.
Did you get an elevation of the?
Yes, and did I forward that to you? I did not, so I'll make sure to do that. It was like 264, I want to say, so it's about a foot higher
Well, but the
than where it
stake
needs to
that
be.
we saw that got
The
knocked
stake that's
over.
sitting in the,
No, the stake that got knocked over the day we were all
Mhm.
out there, that's where your proposed pipe is.
Mhm.
But is that stake still there?
Um,
Because remember, that's the one that got tipped over.
it's in the picture. When was the picture taken?
You just took that picture.
We can spruce it
But
up
no,
if
the
there's.
stake had fallen over.
It's the orange. It's the bright orange dot right there.
Over in here somewhere?
Yeah.
So
It's
the
basically
one,
at
the one
the-
we knocked over, or the wildlife knocked over, was outside of the silt fence.
Right, just outside the
Yeah,
silt
That
fence.
wasn't the, that was not the. Yeah, the lion cave, I was pointing something out there. That was not this.
No, it was the inlet. So that's the silt fence line, and that's
So what was the
like 2
stake
feet
that was
away.
flipped over that we were looking at?
That was the inlet,
So it's outside of the silt fence line.
just outside the silt fence line, correct.
So that might be your level then.
that,
Water.
that makes sense to me.
No, he said
I
it
think
was a
that's
foot
too-
higher.
Yeah, this is
Right,
264.
so I do think that if the pipe was in there right now, that water level would not be at where it's at. It would be above, this point, this inlet. So it would have taken water during the thaw, during the most recent rain.
That was taken,
Was it say the 16th or whatever? The
16th.
Date of the memo, yeah. Was that Friday? Thursday?
what's the commission's pleasure? As you recall, at the last meeting, we asked to have the plan tightened up, which they have done and presented.
Alright, so the reason the water level was up and down is strictly because of the amount of rain.
Yeah, and to what they've presented, and we feel as though where the elevation is and when we met out on site.
And we're trying to accomplish protecting wetland vegetation
But we're,
outside of the open water pond area?
we've over flooded what we're tasked to protect. So we're at the point where we're choking off what was the wetlands. You've flooded it, you've over,
Yeah, but is it flooded for what length of time? Enough to keep the soil saturated so that the wetland will continue to grow, or is it gonna starve the wetland?
Well, we want the pipe to be
Yes,
at the
that's the
same
question.
level
Yeah.
as what the overflow used to be. Predicted, it was at 263, used to be. So the pipe is that level, so supposedly it's gonna keep it at the level where it naturally would have been, ebbing and flowing. The question is, without pumping this, how much time will it take for it to recede back to?
Right, do we know that?
Right.
Even if it drains
But
to 260.
we've done that. I have a
I'm
question, and this,
I'm just trying to figure out, we had a natural pond area that went up and down, obviously, and
but it had
developed this.
it had an opportunity to relief. It has no relief at this time. So the water can't go anywhere. My question from an engineering, and this is purely as a layperson, can we take a conservative tack of where the pipe is, and if you're off, the pipe can always be extended out?
So what we've done is we've set the actual invert of the pipe at 262.5, and then we've set the weir. It's essentially a sloped inlet where that is at elevation 263. So there's a 6-inch differential of potential modifications or things that we could do.
And you feel that 6 inches is enough, that if we saw this within a year or 6 months or whatever the time period, that we could modify without having to rip the road back up?
Absolutely.
Yeah, because the goal is not to drain that
Right.
wetland area.
Correct.
Right? It's not to have a foot and a half of water in it, but
Right.
6 inches, 4 inches, 8 inches, whatever it ebbs and flows
Right.
into that old hump that was pre-construction conditions so that that wetland still floods and does what it's supposed to do without having an excess, which it didn't do, which would change what it was doing prior to us getting there.
Thus the problem, that it was doing something other than what it's doing now.
Correct,
And
and
we're
that,
trying
and the
to put
pipe
it
is
back.
meant, the pipe
So-
is meant
so-
to emulate the original condition. That's exactly what it's going to do. We're not altering, changing spring-fed, non-spring-fed, we're just
We're
recreating
trying to put it back.
the saddle that was there that held the water to create the wetland.
It's just not naturally going away. Now we've got a little bit more of a discharge as well.
Yeah.
Thoughts?
I mean, and they have committed to monitoring this situation. There's already, obviously, a bunch of dead trees and restoration that's gonna need to
Mhm.
happen.
Yeah.
Yep. So that was also done over the, kind of at the tail end of the summer. Dave Cowell went out there and evaluated the vegetation, and it came to be probably the best course of action to wait until spring growth season, and then we'll see what really was damaged, what needs to be replaced, and what we have to do for restoration.
But we did talk at the last meeting in terms of timeline, that we didn't want to wait till spring to do the cut. What are your thoughts on that now?
Yeah, I mean, I think it's gonna be conditioned on frost, and it's gonna be conditioned on how wet our spring is. If it's a normal spring, I think we get in there and bang this thing out.
Prior to spring?
Yeah, yeah, I mean, there's a balance between when things start to thaw, the frost in particular, and when we get into mud season. So
Well,
there's a
because
type-
we run an issue of flooding downstream. And so we can't wait till spring when we have everything coming off that, because they're gonna converge and carry on. So we have to think of what's going down below, closer to the train as well. So we wanna make sure as everything kind of keeps going down, that we're not adding too much water into that point coming across.
To relieve this condition, you mean?
Correct.
Yeah, and
By relieving this, we need to make sure that we're not doing it in the spring when we've got our heavy flows coming down grade,
Well, I think, and that's a good point, and I think as a safety measure, we could relieve this mechanically well before.
down the other end.
Well before any frost release, but maybe, so we could combine of relieving this, to your point, not in the peak of the spring,
Right.
when everything else is being
We
released.
can pump it all the way back down the other road across Grimes if we had to.
So,
Pumping into Basin 4, which is where they
Be
did it.
Basin
Yeah,
4.
Basin
As
4.
long as long as it's not frozen.
Right.
Yeah, right, yeah, this will thaw before the frost will release, and I think mechanically we can manage that, so that we're not releasing it all in the spring.
It's gonna be a lot of conditions.
So when I went out there and I saw this condition, I went down and looked at the outlet going across Grimes, and there was silt coming out of the
Yeah.
pipe. So that's
Which pipe?
the pipe going under Grimes,
Underground.
discharging into the wetland
Oh,
downstream.
Oh, where we've
We-
seen it before.
We
Yep.
saw that when we were out that day.
Well, I'm questioning whether you saw that pipe running with silt in it, or you saw silt in before
I
the
saw
pipe that
silt.
crosses.
No, I saw on the wetland side.
Right.
I
Yeah,
saw
Yeah,
silt
saw that.
yeah.
coming in
There's
the.
there's a lot of buildup there.
Yeah, that's the
kinda-
washout of Grimes Road, which I don't know where we are
No,
with
it's
that.
on your side.
Yeah, correct. Grimes Road was washing into that,
So
the end of our discharge
what have we
point.
done to help that
Well, the
situation?
inside- the
Because
inside
every time it
disca-
rains, you're gonna have the same situation.
We're gonna be widening that section of Grimes and replacing the culvert, so that's gonna stop the washout that's occurring right now.
It's not part of this filing, but it was part of
Well,
site discussion.
It doesn't matter if it's impacting it from this development.
Yeah, but that's not the
Some of-
case.
Some of it's Grimes Road as well. So, yes, this site contributes, but we're unclear proportionally what that balance is, because the road is breaking up and washing. But
Is there, is lot 11, like, it looks like this is a pipe and it goes to another, basically another pipe and then out to A.
Mhm.
Is there an opportunity to create some temporary storage
So,
further upstream, just so we don't create a flood?
Well, if they
Lot
don't,
11 was
if
vacant.
they don't,
Last say, is it not?
you
vacant
could
anymore?
wait to build on 11 until, which would be something we'd probably
To
talk about,
stabilize.
to not build on 11 until you have this successfully done.
I'd feel
I
like
agree
that
with
would
that.
be
Yeah, so that
Yeah.
can be
We're
your,
on the same
a lot
page
more
there.
comfortable with
that can be your emergency if you had to do,
Capacity.
yeah. Which is what it's been used for before.
Yeah, we're on board getting this
Okay.
thing squared away before we put on it. Because the buyers are gonna ask more questions than you will. So,
Yeah, flood people's basements, they're not gonna be happy with you.
it's the fear, right?
Okay. So let's come back to what's on the table, and that is the location of the pipe and the allowance to let them go ahead and start to work on this while we develop an understanding of where we're at with this seasonally. Amy rolls her eyes.
Well,
No, because I just got a really nasty, well, is this an amended notice of intent, minor modification?
So we're using
This is
a-
definitely not minor.
we're using a monitoring plan that's been developed.
With respect to visually understanding the standing water, we can certainly maintain the monitoring that we have in effect right now. I mean, it's essentially, we got guys on site that can take a look and see if this thing is being, engaged and during what frequency it is. At the end of the day, it's gonna be a trickle to start off with. Once it's installed, to lower the water elevation to that 263, and then it's really gonna depend on how intense the rainfall is, if that continues to happen or if it does not. We went quite a while towards the end of the summer with no standing water in that area after we did pump it down. So we would anticipate that we're gonna see a little bit in the spring thaw, and then it's gonna go back into that steady state of just being a wet
And
meadow.
as far as monitoring the vegetation,
So that's a separate
That's
kind of action plan, and Dave Cowell, our senior wetland scientist,
Gonna be-
will
So
back
that's gonna
out.
be on Amy's,
Right.
yeah, it's part of discussion.
Yep. So we'll be putting a plan before you, kind of evaluating what died off, if anything, and
I think
then
that
what we need to do.
we've talked a lot about sequential and timing, so I think it would be appropriate to gather the notes of the two and look at, okay, so from the point that we think that we have clear weather for a week, potentially to say, okay, let's have a go date and then everything that's gonna follow for that week. Because you're gonna need additional erosion controls and really preparation for 11. So if all of a sudden we start a project and then we can't afford to have failures going down into what we've created successfully.
So the intent of construction sequencing would be to start on the downstream end and then go to open space east. So this pipe's gonna be in place, it's gonna be, all the stone's gonna be placed, your erosion control is
What I'm
gonna be
saying is
there, and then,
To have that in writing. Or just even bullet points for.
Construction sequence.
Yeah, so-
Set up silt fence.
Yep.
I mean, this is gonna need to be, if it's here when we start, this will need to be mechanically managed
Correct.
prior.
Yeah,
obviously.
exactly.
Yeah.
So what we can do is we can, should the commission approve this,
Yes.
we can work with Amy, put that out there prior to the commencement of construction.
But I think we would have to, you'd really want to look at the calendar and the weather forecast and frost.
Frost is a
Yep.
factor.
So I think you're,
Understood.
you're really looking at, 2-3 weeks. So to look at the frost, get the water down, and then start working backwards.
Who? I'm about to change the subject if you're.
Well, let's finish up on this
Okay.
one before we bounce.
Okay.
Any other discussion on this piece with the pipe? And Amy, do you have any questions?
So I'm gonna write a letter saying that they can go ahead and do this with any conditions.
I would say with at least a week's notice to the commission.
Week's notice
To
to
have a
sequence, yeah.
pre-construction meeting to go over these times.
Mhm.
And I can't remember if you'd ever discussed the monitoring that needs to go on there, which is kind of related to that, how long that's gonna need to go
So
on.
from when the pipe is installed,
Yeah,
we're looking at significant time.
At least a full year.
Yeah,
At
definitely,
least.
because you've got to go
Like
through the whole
usual.
cycles, yeah.
the usual 3 years probably is.
Yep.
is-
Yeah, and then we'll know within the year if the pipe is really set at the right elevation.
Yeah.
If it's not
Hopefully we'll
drought.
know, hopefully we'll know sooner than that,
We don't
but,
have drought.
yeah, if it's a drought, then it's an issue. Are we happy with that discussion?
Sure.
Okay, all right, question on other?
My question from a long-term standpoint is, so when the highway accepts the road, I'm assuming
Mhm.
they accept maintenance of this weir structure, so that if it, like,
It's not really gonna be a
Backs up.
weir, though.
okay. I
Yeah,
thought
it's-
Brian said the word
No,
weir.
Well,
there was talk
We had
about.
discussion about it, but
Yeah,
it's-
right now
where
it's.
it's set, it won't work.
Think of a
Okay.
plunge pool in
Yeah,
reverse,
I'm looking
essentially.
I'm looking at your.
It's just
the
a rip wrap.
cross-section.
Yeah, it's a rip wrap inlet.
So yes, at some
essentially.
point, if and when Fraser or this is accepted, the town would take over maintenance of that.
The
That's
maintenance, so if
correct.
it floods, then it's, highway has to go.
Doing an
Okay.
O&M for the pipe, like a general, for this, does this downstream bowl spreader ever need maintenance? Is it just
I mean,
expected to?
yeah, it's stone and a perforated pipe. It's as simple as it gets. I mean, we wouldn't really anticipate sediment even going into this because it's
Right.
A lot of
just
people don't
runoff
ant-
from the field.
A lot of people don't anticipate sediment though, and.
No, but we
No,
did-
It happen a lot.
It does.
It's just
Understood.
more like
When we did
grass-
water dish,
grass
it was clean.
clippings
Yeah.
and
Yeah.
If people do things that are
Yeah.
That's all, I'm
not
just
appropriate.
I'm just thinking,
No, it's fair.
long-term, we
Yeah.
don't want.
Mhm.
So if a beaver happens to
Flood.
plug that, it stays plugged, because we can't do anything with the beaver.
Yeah, that's
Let the
separate
dogs loose.
regulation.
Let the dogs loose.
Okay. Okay, any other discussion? We gotta keep moving. Okay. All right, so I
Did you
think
have one
we're-
other thing? Did you want to ask about certificates of compliance, or deal with that another time?
Oh, on the locks?
Yeah.
No, I get, if you wanna see that stuff in the spring, I know when you allowed us to remove those silt fence on whomever has come in for buyers, I assumed that we were stabilized, or we would have been able to release that. So now we need to do as-bills, get those to you and proceed, but
Yeah, all right.
it's on a housekeeping issue more than an urgency
Okay.
issue.
Okay. So construction sequence
Mm-hmm.
to Amy, and then she'll send you the notes and with a week's notice.
Mhm.
Okay.
And can you get me that elevation that you
Mhm.
read on that?
And the vegetation monitoring, just make sure we
Yep,
Yep,
have
it's
that as
spring.
one of the.
Ongoing,
springtime.
right?
Yep,
okay, thank you.
thank you.
If I may, just Grimes, we talked on that site walk about Grimes and the
Yeah.
DPW, and again, we're happy to help on that. We just don't know where we are as far as,
So I think what we had talked about, that you wanted us to drive the train a little bit to send a message that we'd like to look at that. Timing is very good for that, so we can send a letter to.
Stoddard?
Chris Stoddard.
yeah, like I said, we
And
have
also
some,
CC Highway on that.
I'm gonna just give him a call and see.
Yeah,
we'll come in for a meeting. We have some land on that other side to kind of get some sort of sediment.
okay.
What's your intent on doing that, this spring, summer?
The widening of the road?
Yeah.
Possibly, yes,
Yeah.
yeah.
Okay.
Could be,
Okay.
Yeah, yeah.
All right, we're happy to help with that. Okay.
Thank you.
Thanks.
And next is 825, request for extension of order of conditions for maintenance of aquatic vegetation at Long Pond, Spec Pond, and Doleful Pond. Hi there, come on up.
Hey guys, I'm Rebecca J. Gare. I'm with Solitude. You guys might
Corey
know
Godfrey
Corey.
from the Water Department. I know about half of you, I think.
So we're here on behalf of us and the Littleton Water Department.
Yeah.
We've been managing the 3 ponds as long as I've been here, which is 6 years, probably more than that.
Longer than that, yeah.
So what we're asking for is, up to a 3-year extension on the orders that we already have, so we can continue management. What we're managing is the invasive species. We haven't gone after anything else that I know of, so there's still, I think I sent you guys a little write-up at some point. I think it got circulated.
So in your experience of the 6 years, what has changed in terms of application?
Nothing's changed.
So nothing,
no,
no
we're
chemicals, no process?
Yeah, it's the
everything's-
same chems, different areas. So for Spectacle especially, we treated it in 2016. It was a pretty sizable treatment around a lot of the shoreline. 2017, we didn't have to treat for that particular species. A few small patches popped up, so next year we may go back and just hit those locations. But for the 5 years I've been here, the densities of each species we've been targeting has gone down.
Okay.
So the distribution now is going to start to go down.
And are
You're
you
gonna
seeing
see
new species come through?
natives?
Okay.
Yeah.
And
they
do you have an
tend to
update
rebound.
for Long Pond and Doleful? Like, what's going on?
Yeah, similar fanwort.
Overhead.
There's that finger cove in Long Pond, kind of off the boat launch to the left. I think fishermen like it there. So we're going to try next year to go after a little bit wider of an area, because I think when they go in there, the fanwort gets chopped up, and that's how it spreads. It's staying right in there, but we want to extend the treatment out a little further to make sure we
Would
get
you
it.
ever, in your experience, want to put a boom area, and so to make it so that
There's
boats
some maps in here.
don't go in there? So we've seen that in other communities can
We
do that?
could. I don't know
If you
because
think
I know
that-
when we notified to treat, your concern's always fishing, boating, swimming.
Yeah, it's
that
always an
kind of
issue.
thing.
Parks and Rec, they don't like these treatments. I mean, they like the treatments from the big picture perspective, but they don't like them from the
restriction.
In 2 weeks, we need
yeah.
to do this treatment, and it's the middle of June, and they have people out swimming, and there's no
I mean,
swimming
you
out
don't-
for-
I don't-
But if you
Yeah,
have an
people-
area that you think is specifically overused by boats and breaking up some of that, you can add kind of temporary restrictions. So
do
if you
that,
wanted to
yes.
put
Yeah.
booms in there for certain periods when
Yeah.
you think it's most
Yeah.
fragile.
I mean, it would
either-
be a 3-month.
Yeah, we could
They
talk to
can't
Parks
go
and Rec
over
about
there,
that,
but I
see
mean, there's
what
plenty
their
of
thoughts
other
were.
ponds of fish.
Yeah.
So I mean, we could look into that if you
Yeah,
wanted.
It's, I mean, it's successful on other
Yeah,
bodies
no,
of
I
water.
agree.
so-
We do it on other ponds too.
good thought.
Doleful, I actually met Amy out there a couple years ago. It was pretty good and covered when she came out taking pictures. It's gone down a lot. It's still distributed throughout the whole pond, but that's there's like 10 years or more of dormancy with these seeds. But the density has gone down a lot. And when I treated twice, we do an initial application, and then we wait a month or so and wait for whatever was maybe underneath to come up. So we were treating, they didn't get much bigger than this year, the rosettes. So we hit them before they seed, and that doesn't allow them to reproduce for that year. But like I said, there is like 10 years or more of dormancy
Okay.
in the seeds.
Did you say you're starting to get some natives coming in?
Oh, yeah. Yeah, so at Doleful, the herbicide we applied is foliar, so it only, it's the chestnut and it translocates to the root system. And then with the other 2 ponds, we're only treating select areas and lower rates. So the rates that curly leaf or fanwort need to be killed is less than what native pondweeds and lilies need to be killed. So you see everything other than what we're treating kind of remain there. And if not, they usually bounce back within 3 years.
Do you, when the plants that are treated die, do they like float to the surface and you come back and grab them, or do they just
No,
they decay?
They drop to the bottom and
Okay.
decay. Yeah. If we ever go after lilies, which we don't do in any of these, the rhizomes will pop up, but
Yeah.
We don't go after those. Sometimes lilies can, on occasion, take a hit,
Yeah.
but they do bounce back.
Okay.
I know we have impairments for dissolved oxygen, and so
Yeah.
the, decaying plants at the bottom, and,
And that's the other thing,
Creates-
if it's a whole body,
Yeah.
water body treatment, we don't do it all at once
Right,
because
yeah,
of
okay.
that.
Yeah.
But it hasn't been a whole water body
Yeah.
since I've been here,
Okay.
other than doleful.
Any other comments or procedurally?
So just need to make a motion to extend those
For-
three
for 3
permits for
years.
however long
Okay.
you choose.
Do you have someone that would like to make a motion, and what would your time frame for extensions be?
do we want to see if anyone has comments? I don't think anybody does, but, okay.
Good.
Comment.
On Doleful, I was very impressed by.
Sorry, could you say your name?
I'm sorry, Rick
Even though I
Finley.
know.
I'm on the Conservation Trust and the Beaverbrook Road. I was very impressed with the work on the water chestnut at
Yeah,
Doleful.
it's coming down a lot. Yeah.
I didn't even notice any from the side that we usually use.
Yeah.
But you said there's more, there is spotty all around?
Yeah, like I said, those seeds, they have such a dormant life to them.
Yeah.
You will see them pop up scattered. They're starting to be a lot more scattered now, where it was pretty much completely covered when we started.
Okay, well, I was just wondering, so are you spot,
I think that's
you're
fine,
just,
as
you're
long as
going around and just hitting the ones that
regulations
Yeah,
are
we're
for
just
surviving?
materials that they're using.
Spraying right on top of
Right on
them.
top.
And we do
Yeah,
it
they're
twice to
professional.
make sure we get anything that may not have been there the
No,
first
all
time, or
three.
anything that was underneath the ones at the top the first time. So-
But you're comfortable, I mean, otherwise I was thinking that there might be possible community help, getting some kayakers out there.
Yeah, I don't know if I mentioned that in the report, but once you get it down to you can actually go out and just hand pull them before
Right,
they
I know
seed.
that. I know.
And we're starting to kind of get down there.
Active
Mhm.
meal do that pretty well. But then every now and then it gets ahead. And
Yeah.
Active meal, and then they have to either
It's just
treat it or
with their
chemically
waders.
or
Yeah.
harvest it.
Yeah,
Get
it's
it
just
out.
man-
We kayak.
Yeah.
You
You
can
have
do
a
it both
kayak.
ways.
Boy Scout project with their waders and kayaks. Okay. Do we have a motion?
So, do you want to do it? I'll do it.
I can.
Whatever you want to do.
Just do it.
Okay, so I'll make a motion to issue an extension for the orders of conditions for DP file number 204-438, 204-513, and 204-582 for a period of 3 years.
Do we have a second?
I'll second it.
All those in favor?
Aye.
Any opposed, extensions? Okay, Gary. Thank you for coming in. We appreciate
I'll
it.
give you until 2021.
Glad to hear that you're being successful.
Yeah. Is that it? Oh,
Yeah, I think that's it. I have another. Oh, I have one more thing.
You
so,
want to stay?
yeah.
I had to rotate you through.
Thank you.
So in order to try and keep things going, Corey, we're going to ask you to stay while we keep signing these things, and
Sure.
you're here for the Cobwell Zone 1 update. No,
Yeah.
thank you.
I'm good.
All right.
Yeah, so when I initially asked to be on the agenda for tonight, I expected to be bringing at least some kind of draft language for an easement to be held by the water commissioners for the Zone 1 area around the 3 test wells that are currently down at Cobb's Pond. But I've been working with town council, and they believe that, so they did a title search of all of the properties in the area. They believe that the existing protections and prohibitions and the conservation restrictions that are currently in place on those parcels are substantially equivalent to Zone 1 protection requirements. So they're going to make that argument to DEP. They're going to write an official letter. And hopefully DEP says, sure, yeah, we agree with that. And if that's the case, then we're done and we don't have to do anything else, which would be really nice.
Because we know Dick Perkins worked really hard on a lot of those easements, so they were written quite well.
Yeah.
So,
So hopefully that works out that way. If not, if they say, it's a little too convoluted or whatever they say, then our second strategy would just be to get a letter agreement between the 3 parties, the Water Department, the Conservation Commission, and the Conservation Trust, that just essentially reaffirms everyone's commitment to those Zone 1 protection requirements. So town council doesn't believe that we're going to need to get separate easements held by the water commissioners at this time.
Okay.
And I hope that's the case, because if we do have to do that, it'll end up being a multi-year process, and it's just a huge hassle.
Okay. So you do have some of the trust members here. Do you
Yep.
in
We've-
any questions? I'm sure you've been in communication.
We've discussed it a bit. I haven't forwarded the title search to you guys yet. I can do that so you can have all those details on all the properties. It's a pretty lengthy document.
And it's a convoluted mosaic.
Yeah, it is, yeah. It was just completed last Thursday, so it's hot off the press. I'll send it to you tomorrow morning so you can take a look.
This
but
is it, so it's got it.
It's thick,
Okay.
yeah.
So we appreciate you coming in. It sounds as though we're here to support. So if there's anything that we need to do, just let us know.
Okay.
Okay. Great.
Thank you.
Thank you.
And did you want to mention, they're going to need an extension to 204-686, which is for the Cobb's well, so,
Yeah, we currently have an order of conditions from 2011, I believe. That was extended by the Permit Extension Act.
right, yeah.
But it expires in April, so we're gonna be requesting an extension to that.
Put that on as an item?
For the next agenda.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Okay. So
Yeah.
that's fine.
Okay.
Okay.
Why do we want to avoid the,
Has to be posted.
no, not that, the water, the, zone 1? Why do we want to avoid the zone 1?
Well, I guess because essentially for the water commissioners to hold the easement, we'd have to go through the whole like Chapter 97 process, which I don't know the details of
Okay.
that exactly, but it's essentially the Conservation Commission would have to give up their easement, and then the water commissioners would have to take on an easement. So it's this whole like town meeting process that would just take a while.
Okay, so it's just the administrative, because
yeah, it's essentially
just
just
some benefits I can think of to, call yourself a zone 1, or like it shows up on a map of the area, so people who are doing work within the area, you can do a DEP map, and it
Yeah,
will
there's-
show you, what that is, so
There would
not
still be a
having
Zone
it-
1 area.
Okay.
So that would still be
So it would
delineated.
still show up?
It'd still be the 400-foot radius around the wells. Yeah, that would still show up as a mapped area. It's just that the protections that already apply to the complete parcels in that area are equivalent to the Zone 1
Yeah,
protections.
I got that. That made sense. I was just thinking of like the recent spill that we had. If you're in if you're in a zone 1 and you have better access to that information immediately, you don't want to use certain
Right.
surfactants to take care of a spill, like that type of thing. So
Yeah.
that was
Yeah,
the
no, it'd
basis
still
for
be
my
consistent.
question. Thank you.
Don, quick question?
McIver, Wilton Conservation Trust. DEP says for zone 1, you need a 400-foot radius of
Yep.
ownership under the control of the people who manage it, which is the water department. Now, it's fairly complex, there are parts that we own that you have a CR on top of, vice versa. And other things have been built up over time of other CRs, all within
Yeah,
that
so it's
400-foot area.
understood.
So the title search is probably fairly complicated. What I hope from all this is that we can consolidate some of the CRs and sort of figure out what's what. Plus also, you're going to be having development in different places, including on the peninsula, the 2 parcels you bought for the ConsCom. But that was to compensate for the standing pipe on Oak Hill, which is federal land and water department.
Okay.
So I was with Savis and Mass DEP when we were negotiating about buying those 2 parcels to compensate for that. But now you're putting something on top of that, and I don't know if that's gonna open up a can of worms, that you need to compensate for the compensation
Okay.
for Oak Hill,
Yep.
which is
Yep.
federal money. So it's
Understood.
complicated.
Yep, it sounds like it.
Okay.
Thank
Future
you.
We're all
discussion.
into protecting, but
Yeah.
it's
Oh, no,
complicated.
I
All right,
also
good.
understand
Thank
that.
you, Corey.
All right, thank you.
Okay. Next is a public hearing notice of intent, Cloverdale, for the conservation land, and that's, DEP, we don't have a DEP number yet, but this is for construction of a boardwalk.
No DEP number yet. So this was instigated by a grant that basically Ellis Little Conservation Trust chased. It's under the Conservation Commission. Got the grant for about $7,000, but they asked for the DCR asked for some additional stuff. So the grant's up to that, I think,
A little
9
over-
or
a little
10
over
or
eight. That's a little over
whatever,
8,000.
which is approved, by the way. Well, not approved.
Okay,
They're moving
so
along.
let's just back up. So we recognize that no DEP number has been issued, the notice of intent has been filed. So for the commission, if we can just review what was on that notice of intent.
So very generally, this is the location, proposed location of the boardwalk. So it will cross the wetlands back in Cloverdale, take advantage of the area that was cleared of all the invasives and, the meadow restoration piece of it, be able to make an entire loop all the way around. So there'll be 4 crossings. The main one is at the top of the drawing there, where to go across the old Beaver Marsh through there. And then 3 smaller ones down along behind the houses on the far side. That one you just pointed to is already there. That crossing's already there. So there's just 3 kind of behind the houses.
Okay.
So let's talk about the project and from kind of start to finish and who would be implementing this. And then based on good weather, we would need to schedule a site walk for the commissioners to go out and obviously go through kind of the crossing areas.
Sure.
Who's running point for this?
Rick. This is going to be constructed mostly by trail crew.
Okay.
It's fairly simple
During the
construction.
dry season?
Yes.
Okay.
So we will wait until it is dry, and then we'll start probably.
Can you tell the commissioners, obviously you can point to where the crossings are, but to talk about what is in the field, and obviously I know that you'll submit and review what the crossings will be made of, and you can kind of walk us through that project.
And the application had all the pictures of all the crossings in it. That's just an example there.
Yeah, that's. So the primary crossing is, I'm just drawing.
304 feet is the main one across the meadow.
Okay, and that's that one?
Yes, location 1.
Yep.
Okay.
Is that like this guy?
Yeah.
Okay.
Yep, actually it's going.
And then there's
right.
3 other ones along the side.
And that first one's gonna be built on the culverts.
Yep, it's all done on
So it will
plastic
basically
pipe.
float.
Well, water will flow through it. It
Right.
won't be really floating because it's open on both ends.
Mhm.
But it will be, we have beaver problems that are controlled by a beaver deceiver. It's conceivable that will fail at different times, but we're hoping that the weight of it will keep it in place.
Okay.
And that's all that's cat and nine tails primarily through that area. The other areas are through Red Maple Swamp primarily, and it's just small flooded areas of anywhere from a couple of inches to, it may run down to 8 inches or something, would you say?
Yeah, basically drainage from the hillside behind Surrey Road.
Is there what's the conditions of that now? Is there water flowing through?
It's flooded right now.
Okay. Frozen over?
Yes. Well, I wouldn't walk across it, but.
Well, at some point we're going to, so I guess we're trying to figure out what point that's going to be.
I wouldn't advise it right now.
Okay.
It's flooded now, melted snow and
Okay.
ice.
So perhaps when it refreezes might be a better time to kind of get a sense for
It
where
never
we're at?
really freezes solid all winter.
Okay.
I don't know if it has something to do with the vegetation.
Yeah, there's
or-
so much
Yeah.
grass in there, it's hard to.
Yeah.
Yeah, so I have walked across it in really cold spells, but.
Okay.
Depends on whether we get
Okay.
another freeze.
So, and then your second crossing
Wait,
is,
before they do that, are all your crossings gonna be the same?
No.
format, like-
No, the one on the meadow is gonna be on the plastic pipe,
Oh, plastic.
and the other
Then the
one,
other ones, that's an example of the other ones, yeah.
the other ones will be on cement blocks with 2x6.
That's the example of that?
Yeah.
Okay. All right.
okay. And then your third and fourth crossing?
Yeah, the second crossing is 40 feet.
Mhm.
Third crossing is 80 feet. I think that's right. And the third one is 56 feet.
I wish I could point exactly where they are, but they're sort of stretched through there.
Yeah, I couldn't quite figure out where they were. I didn't put them
But this is very bad.
in. Yeah.
I don't see them marked on that, but.
You can see, you
Yeah,
can
the right
basically, you can
glasses.
see them where it's wet.
So I think
Yeah.
the advantage of doing the site walk is that the commissioners can understand the proximity to moving in the material as well. How do you envision getting these substantial boards kind of out there? Lumberjacks?
Yeah. Well, it's all gonna be volunteer labor.
We've been talking, we have been discussing that. We may be doing the large,
They're not that strong. These are big logs.
Mostly Littleton Trail Crew people.
We may just do the-
70 people on the Littleton Trail Crew, so.
we'll probably do the large one in sections, starting at the shore, and then just bring each section out over it, and just move along.
Is there a time frame that you all kind of have?
Well, we want it to be
Okay.
dry, so we would like to do it this, start as soon as we can, probably.
The grant money needs to be spent.
By- before
We
when?
have a while, what is it, 2 years?
1 year?
Or two?
I think it was just 1 year.
1 year, and then you
Starting
can file
from
for
when
it.
to when?
The date that we get the grant.
November or something like that.
Yeah. So.
I'd have to
it'd be-
double check that,
would
but
have
it
to
would be
done
this
by-
summer,
By the end of
basically.
2018, unless we file for an extension with the state.
Yeah.
Okay.
Which would have to be in 45 days prior to
Because the
that
materials
date.
probably would have already been bought by then.
Oh, yeah.
Yeah.
So in
yeah.
good faith, you'd have to show that you're in production of it.
Yeah.
Oh, right,
I
right.
don't know that they, I
Now,
would
you
hope
can-
that they
yeah.
would give you an extension.
Mhm. You can actually go out now. You don't have to, you can walk through 3 feet of this and decide whether it's, and then we turn around and go back this way and come back
just start
and look at it.
counterclockwise.
But it's basically very much the same all through that first big boardwalk.
You could definitely, after tomorrow's rain, we probably could do it with waders.
So
Look
It's-
to freeze again midweek and then
Right.
warm up.
So the numbers go clockwise, so one being the largest.
One being the largest, yeah.
Are they all gonna be constructed,
Two separate formats.
location one? The long one,
That's going to have the pipe as its primary support.
the pipe is the primary support?
And the size of the pipe will vary on the grade of the bottom of
We'll try to
the
keep it-
meadow.
trying to keep it
so that
level.
we can keep it level.
Yeah.
So some of the pipe may be
There's all,
18 inches and some may be.
there's all
12.
kinds of new fangled ways of constructing boardwalks.
So this is brand new for me, and normally I'd hate plastic, but it actually
Yeah.
is probably very appropriate for
Well,
this.
there's a system now that has footings, and you can raise it and lower it.
Yep, and
The
we
whole
may in
thing,
fact
if you-
we may use some of those screw pipes where we have a crossing, just to support it if we have to go with,
I mean, it's
a
more,
longer.
it's money,
It is, yeah,
but it's a really good system.
yeah, yeah.
So for the grant money, $7,000?
It's a little over 8 now, I believe.
Yeah, it started about 7, prices have gone up, and they asked to make it more, basically have toe kick rails on it, so it's more accessible all the way through.
7,000, you have total
So the price
7,000?
went up and they were fine with it, so.
So, right
It's not a lot of money, it's not a lot of money.
No, because we're gonna be doing all the work ourselves.
Yeah, there'll be
So
no
when you're-
labor costs at all.
You're
So-
confident that
Well,
7,000
that's the match
would
to
get you
our work.
the supplies that are needed for 4 crossings?
Yeah, we've done it.
Okay.
Got a couple of rounds of quotes.
We've got-
We're not
we've got
totally
quotes.
positive, because nobody will let us give us a quote that's more than like 6 weeks, but it's pretty well
If
taken
I
care
can
of.
be a little bit more of an elephant in the room, if you start it and then it runs out of money, or if someone to say, you can only do 2 of the crossings because of the weather or something, what would be your priority? And
I think we would get the extension. We've been working with Amanda, and I've known her before, and she's been, getting an extension I don't think would be any
my concern
problem.
is to start something that we really need to see it through to its fruition, at least on a culvert. It doesn't have to be all of the 4, and is the grant subject to the completion of all 4 culverts? What if you only got 3 and ran out of money?
It's a reimbursement grant, and
Yeah.
We have to come up with it
We
first
have-
anyway.
We have to come up with the money up front, and then we submit all the receipts, and then they will reimburse us, or the town.
yeah.
Okay.
Well, the town will pay for it. The town has an account at Littleton Lumber,
Right.
so we just, yeah.
And you get reimbursed upon completion?
Every time you submit an
Every
invoice?
time we
In
submit
phases,
an
okay.
invoice.
Essentially, you are getting reimbursed.
Everything has to be documented. We
Conservation
have to-
Commission.
We have to document all the times of the people that work there for the labor costs, for the matching.
But you can't just, can't just ask for the materials to be reimbursed, you have to show the labor's been spent. So you might get the materials, and it might be a while before you build up enough labor to be able to submit the invoice, but.
Right.
So I know I'm interested to go out on the property when everyone feels it's appropriate that we can see them. So I would defer to the two of you because you know the property best. I don't mind going out if it's wet. I've got waders.
Probably just
Well, I
a
think,
nice
like you
day.
said, if we can, like, start across the big one and then might have to walk around, not get
Yeah,
all the
I
way
mean,
through
we
it.
can
but-
access both sides of the meadow.
Yeah.
How far out we go depends on.
Right,
how
because we
deep
don't
the
have
water
snow
is.
cover. My concern is that if all of a sudden next week it freezes and we get, 2 feet of snow, then we're really waiting till spring.
Yeah, no, I would say
I mean, this is a little bit of a
window.
a gap window that we're not accustomed
Wednesday is
available
going to
all
be
week.
beautiful.
If you want to do it Wednesday?
I can do it later in the day Wednesday.
Have to be very late in the day for me.
Is there
Daylight?
still daylight?
Potentially. Like, I could do maybe like 4:35-ish.
I can do 4:30.
You could probably do that too.
Wednesday?
Mhm.
You may be in the dark coming back, but.
It's staying late till like
Yeah.
5:30.
Oh, is it really?
Yeah.
Oh, that's great.
Any questions from anyone?
So 4:30 on Wednesday, sidewalk?
Yep.
And if like Carl or somebody else wants to do it at a different time, we can figure something out too.
And where are we going to meet?
Can meet in my driveway, 63 Great Road. Best place to park.
Okay.
Do you have parking for this area already?
We do, I mean, it's,
Already
the
designated?
area is sort of designated, but we're not parking there. We haven't built a kiosk yet.
Okay, I would like to see that as well. If we have time, I'd like to see that as well.
Yeah, I mean, hopefully that can get improved.
You'll walk right through it. Yeah.
If you will.
Okay. So I'd like to entertain some questions from abutters or citizens. Questions?
Lori and Jody Adler, 5 Old Town Road, Bowers. I'd like to kind of first through the chair, maybe possibly ask the last time any of the members have actually been out to the site?
For me, it's been a while prior to the cutting, so I have personally not been back out since the cutting.
Yeah.
So,
I haven't either.
since the cutting.
Since the cutting?
No, I have nothing out there.
I was out there maybe a month and a half ago. I think I pulled over.
Never.
Before snow, so in the fall.
In the fall?
Also just after the cutting, and then I just observed it from the road.
Okay. All right, I just do find that interesting, because it has been to me what I would call a work in progress for quite a while. Bertie and I actually did walk it yesterday, and we kind of both prepared a statement that we would like, the commission to basically hear. So,
Get the
that
microphone.
Yep.
in,
Can you,
Can
Maureen,
you come up in the
do you wanna
microphone?
just come up?
That would be
Yep.
great. Thank you.
Microphones are good, but they're
Yeah,
not that good. That's great. If you
I've
want to
got a
just,
little bit of a cold too, so.
if you just want to reintroduce yourself as well, that'd be
Okay,
great.
all right. So, Maureen Adama, 5 Old Farm Road, butter to this property. And you want to share our names?
Rhodey Adama, butter, 5 Old Farm Road.
Okay. So anyways, we've been into Littleton just a little bit over 15 years. What's very interesting about this particular parcel, since we've been in Littleton, it has changed labels. When we first came to Littleton, it was labeled as recreation, and there was a flip between a park and rec parcel for conservation. Made perfect sense. We're totally supportive of that. Prior to that, it was actually going to be houses that were supposed to break through from Old Farm Road. Our cul-de-sac was actually supposed to continue on to 119. It was determined, I would guess, by the builder that it was too wet to build homes, and that's where OHC, the Apple Dior development, donated those parcels to the town. Back in 2015, CPC funds were granted to actually make Cloverdale, and it's very interesting. I've got 4 gentlemen sitting in this room that are in black and white stating that this was going to be a natural habitat preserved back to the farmland of what it once was back into the 1800s. And, you know, those are not exact quotes, but that's basically what everybody said, either at the CPC meeting, when I asked directly what it was going to be, Littleton Independent, and Lowell Sun. You know, the property was supposed to be completely done by 2016. As I said, Rhodey and I actually walked it yesterday. There have been 2 white plastic chairs sitting out there for who knows long. We've been seeing them forever that I couldn't even, they'd almost blend in for me now, because it's like once you see a sign over and over again, it's there. Very, very, very distasteful if this is supposed to be conservation land. In addition to that, we walked, we did find some trash, but more importantly, we found all these bundles of wood and tree branches and everything, just all piled up, been sitting there for months and months and months. The project was supposed to be done, become this farmland vista gateway into Littleton from Acton. It's never been done. $40,000 in CPC funds was granted for this to happen. As I said, we're in a butter. We can see straight onto the property. I can't figure out when myself as a resident is supposed to be able to utilize this. Any given weekend, Mr. O'Neill is out there with his tractor just plowing around, and, you know, I'm not going to take myself out there or my children out there if it looks like it's being worked on. In addition to that, I would imagine many of you commissioners have probably even been asked yourselves, what is this? Why did they do this?
It has been part of discussion.
Yeah,
So I think
why
if you
the
go back
trees were
into
down.
notes, it has been part of discussion.
Yeah,
I
so-
think with it, and you're a little bit at a disadvantage that the chairman is not here tonight, who has a lot of the agricultural history for
Okay,
that, and could
right.
have added color to that. So I think
Yeah.
we certainly appreciate the historic piece, but we've kind of lived through.
Okay, well,
some of us
it's
for that.
frustrating for us. So anyways, when we walked the path yesterday, we did not come across things that we did come across when it was actually wooded. You know, the wildlife and birds and all really actually have gone. I mean, I myself love the woodpeckers. Woodpeckers have not been anywhere near that end of town ever since the cutting has taken place. I believe, you know, the geese and everything else that might have actually, you know, been part of that wooded area are now gone. But real quickly, I do think there are a couple things that would need to be addressed before this was to get the green light to move on. I think there should be a real analysis and checklist to see if this is really a desirable place for a walking trail. Yesterday when we were on there, we really felt like we were on a lot that was being cleared for building, to the point where we were almost laughing because back in 1996, we had done that same walk on a lot for something that we were building. It doesn't give us the same senses. You know, we've walked Bumblebee Park, which was really lovely, you know, Prudy Woods. I actually work I walk Narra Park up in Acton because you can let a dog loose up in their wooded area, and just a lovely place to actually do that. The second thing that I would want to ask, if there's even an answer to this, is, you know, do we have any numbers of residents or visitors in from 16 and 17, and have any anticipation on how many people would be using this? I have not seen a lot of activity. I do not understand that the Montessori school may come over occasionally, but we do know one family that did come through, and they ended up in our driveway. So
That begs to the question in terms
Yeah.
of designated parking.
right. Well, they came walking through, so my concerns would be, I think physically today, the property looks horrible and terrible. And it's a very bad impact on the town. I think allowing this is actually an impact on the wetlands, and I think, you know, initially, when it was supposed to be the farmland and Vista, it was because these were wetlands and this is, you know, what we were gonna do, and it was just gonna be a pretty way to come into town. I don't think there's ever been really a whole plan for the property. Again, you know, 2016, I do know it got down to the Board of Selectmen's level. Lowell Sun and Independent picked up on it. Job was supposed to be complete. If you looked out at that property, as we did yesterday, you can see that that hasn't been done. And I'm a bit confused on why individuals would seek a grant without permission first from the owners of the property. I think that's kind of a little backwards. What I'm saying, it sounds like today that there's a grant, that there's money that's been allocated for these boardwalks, but the permission hasn't been given to do these boardwalks.
You have, well, I'll let you address that, because you know.
So our department has been working in conjunction with Jim and Rick with filing the grant application. Sorry, I'm kind of cold.
Okay, I have a cold too, which I'll tell you.
So the commission has been aware of the grant process, but do you mean like it hasn't been permitted before?
No, what I mean is I think there's obviously needs to be relief from this board for these boardwalks to be actually put in the wetlands. And I don't understand why someone would move forward seeking grant money without actually first it's almost like these previous applicants that came out before you tonight. It's like, you know, you're talking with one gentleman, please go see the Board of Health first and get that, you know, because there should be a course of order. And I almost think it's like, well, look, now we have the money, so let's go ahead and do this, versus like we would maybe seek to get a grant if we have your blessing to do this. I think it's a little bit backwards, just for the statement. But anyways, my recommendation to the board is, you know, I think the site needs to be cleaned up. Definitely the chairs need to be removed, the trash needs to be moved, and the piles of debris removed before there's any entertainment of granting this.
Can we, just one clarity, because you're referring to debris, you're referring to the brush that was cut, that was piled, that wasn't taken away?
Yeah.
I just,
That's what I
when
mean.
we think of debris, we think of trash.
Okay, right,
So
okay, yeah.
You're talking, okay.
Yeah, okay, got that, yeah, like, well, no, I'm talking about those big piles too.
Right,
I
but
mean, like
that's
it's,
that's from the original cut.
Yeah.
That I don't believe was removed for whatever.
and that's my
reason.
point, Sarah,
Right,
it's
but
like, yeah.
exactly, we don't call it debris, but it's
Okay,
slashed.
okay, cuts,
Yep.
okay, I will make
Yep,
note of
okay.
that.
No,
You guys kind of mentioned, it's interesting, you all kind of picked up on some of the other stuff that we picked up on. Parking clearly needs to be established. And it's interesting because that strip right there on 119, the speed limit is 50 miles per hour. So it is like, I don't know how you're gonna stop to cut into there, but just making the statement. I think there needs to be some signage on the parcel. As I said, you know, this family did come through and they were like, no worries, you know, but they came right up
That's part of
through.
the discussion.
That, yeah.
That's been ongoing for sure.
And then, I have a couple of, you know, I hadn't had enough time to really dig into this, but they were definitely thoughts that I had last night. Where it's town property, and there's going to be builders building, this is going to be considered structural. I do not believe you can use volunteer work, because that puts the town at liability. Addition to that, I think that this is going to have to see a construction oversight by the building commissioner with at least a final and possibly, you know, a footings and a final inspection. Not a building commissioner, I'm just saying these are thoughts that I had. Sometimes also when you're putting a structure on town property, you may have to make ADA regs for, you know, handicap accessible and whatnot. So that's a much bigger job than just, you know, putting up, you know, something so you can walk over, you know, a puddle, and then more than puddles out there. And, you know, like I said, you know, I do feel sad that it's too bad that now the idea is to come up with a trail. Because I think if it had been still the wooded area, made into a trail, it would have been a great asset to the town of Littleton. I think as it stands, with the cutting and the mess that it currently looks like, I think it is a real detriment to the town. And then Brody does have other things to say too. He goes off on a little bit of a different thing.
Go ahead and take your comment, because
Yeah.
we had not
Yes.
allotted this much time for this, but we
Certainly.
appreciate
And
it.
mine's very brief. And just to really quickly add to the family that ended up erroneously onto our property did make the statement to me a few times that they were extremely disappointed that all the trees were cut down. That they were expecting to see a trail, they were expecting to walk through the woods to see, and they didn't. That's why they were ended up on our property. All right. And then, although we know that it's the commission's right to publish the hearing notices in the Lowell Sun, we think the notices should have been published in the Littleton Independent. Not publishing the Littleton Independent does not really serve our community, because that is our community. Many residents have the expectations that municipal government information regarding meetings and town actions would be written and printed in the Littleton Independent. We believe that the abutters not in the 100-foot abutter notification would have been interested in tonight's hearing, but they didn't have knowledge of it because it was on the Lowell Sun versus Littleton Independent. Again, please, these are just comments that are made not as a criticism, but just as a recommendation for better communication, open communication, transparent communication. Additionally, if the applicant had the date and the location, the time of a hearing, that information should be mailed in the notification to the abutters, then that would have been very helpful. This appears to have been the case with this hearing. Again, just a suggestion as far as providing that information.
I think there's like 17 or 18.
It was 25 on your abutters list.
Some of them were repeats, but yeah.
Yeah, I agree. But there was definitely 20, but the abutters list did
Including
call
the
for
town
25.
and-
Yep.
so-
Yeah, I have a copy of it, yep.
Yep.
Yeah, and from our experiences, bordering towns, it's a practice that they do, and many towns, as far as the rule, they send that to the abutters beyond, within the 300 feet versus the 100 feet. And I'm sorry.
It can depend on the project, whether you're required to do direct abutters.
The town I
versus-
work in, regardless of what the project is, we've made the decision it will always be 300 feet.
Okay, so it's a
Yep.
town by town.
It's
and
a,
every rural is different.
it's a town by town. We understand 100 is fine. We understand going to the Lowell Sun is fine, but we're not feeling that it really is serving the community the best, yeah.
Okay, just real quickly, in closing, just question as far as, and it might have been stated earlier, but to be clear, as far as what is the amount that the grant is for?
Just over 8,000?
I'm sorry?
Just over 8,000.
All right. And has it been determined that the boardwalk can be done within that amount?
We have not
Yes, we
given-
believe so.
That might be their comments, but this commission has not assessed that.
Okay.
Because we've not gone out on site.
Okay, and just one last, who is the applicant for the project of the grant?
This department is the
Conservation
applicant.
Commission.
Okay. So now I'm going to speak, and I don't want to sound hostile or negative, but, and this is coming also from feedback that I got from some other individuals. I do hope you hold yourselves to the same standard as you might hold another applicant. It's a difficult place to be in, but it is wetlands, and, other things couldn't be done on that property, and,
And we
you know.
certainly appreciate that, and I think if you look at some of the parking that we just put in as well, that I
Yeah.
think it's our goal to do that. So, and that's why we're very transparent in our site walk that we'll have this week.
Mhm.
And this hearing will be continued to February 5th as well, so you're welcome to join us.
Thank you.
Again on the 5th.
Just so you know that, your comments about the forest, I totally understand about when you're used to seeing trees, then seeing a barren landscape is much different. However, one of our goals with doing that is to help pollinators, because there are fewer and fewer field type of
Mhm.
environments and habitats.
Right.
And although it might look scrubby and barren now, it will over time look, we hope, beautiful in that we're planting perennial flowering.
And taller,
Right.
taller
Right.
grasses
And that's
for the
what-
birds,
and
because then
honestly,
will be a
right.
management that you can't cut, similar
And-
up at Frost
Right.
Wickham, so.
And I guess
it'll
that's
have
where I'm
that-
confused, because that's what my hope was, that was my understanding.
That's our ultimate goal.
But it
That's our
keeps getting cut, and then there's all this debris.
Yep.
And sadly, it's really strange walking around in a circle out on you feel like you're right on 119. It was, I mean, we kind of had some giggles yesterday. It was kind of like, people must think we look like weirdos out here, because it's like, what are those two people doing
We'll
there?
we'll certainly look
Yeah.
forward to you guys
Yeah.
being good land stewards next door, because
Okay.
you're so next
All
door.
right.
But we welcome you to come and be part of the dialogue.
Yeah,
and-
thanks.
And certainly look at the filings so you can see the type of material and construction that is hoped
Yeah.
to be used as
Well,
well.
I'm
But it's
yeah.
all, nothing's set in stone.
Yeah, I'll be on the record, I don't think it's a good use of state grant money, and I don't think it's really going to be an asset to the town. I think that property could be the gateway, which is a nice looking field, meadow, pasture land, whatever, would be a much more benefit to the town, in my opinion.
We certainly appreciate
Okay,
your
all right.
opinion. yours
Thank
as
you
well.
all.
Okay,
Okay.
thank you.
And maybe
But-
you could take a walk with you and you get a look at, that would be worthwhile since you're butters.
Yeah.
It always looks terrible when there's a higher.
Okay, so we're gonna go ahead to, unfortunately, we're a little, can we jump ahead to Cooper? And do that? Okay, so we're under some tight guidelines, because we do have an executive session that we have to go into this evening as well. And that did take a little bit longer. We'd like to have an update on Cooper, if you guys wanna come up. So, Amy, do you want to start with a brief overview of,
I bet Mark can probably give as good an overview as I can, or Michael, or.
Good evening. Mark Arnold here with Goddard Consulting here on behalf of the Fields. So this discussion is concerning what occurred after the January 13th rainstorm. So the commission remembers that unseasonably warm spell after the snow apocalypse, or whatever people want to term that. The bomb cycle, I don't know, whatever.
There's some pictures.
So the event's basically lining up. So the area of dialogue is going to be basins 3 and 4. So the commission can remember. So basins 3 and 4, they were constructed earlier last year. They functioned through the whole summer and fall as temporary sediment basins, holding fine with significant water going up and even going over the top of the outlet structures themselves during large storms. So we had a pretty cold spell in early January where we got pretty deep frost going like 1 to 2 feet down into the soil itself. And then after that we had the warm spell, and then we had the rain. So what occurred was basically we had a basin that was used as a temporary sediment basin. The orifice hadn't been drilled in it yet because it was being used as a temporary sediment basin. So it's designed to hold for the 100-year storm, so it should hold up to the spillway and then go over. The inside of the basin hadn't been loamed and seeded yet because it was being used as temporary, so we were waiting for it to be finished using, then we were going to clean it out, then loam and stabilize the whole thing. So the basin held fine through the whole summer, and then we had a failure on the night of the 13th. So if you remember, a lot of the heavy rain was earlier on Saturday, which was the 13th, and then Michael did walk the site the Saturday evening, the 13th. The basin was holding water, and I don't know if the commission's been out there, if they see some of the pictures of the ice. The basin went up to about a foot below the spillway, and about a foot higher than this basin here. So this basin was a foot higher than this basin here, and it was holding fine Saturday evening. And then somehow between Saturday evening and Sunday and Monday morning, we had a failure between the structure and the berm, where the water seeped through the gravel that follows the outlet structure pipe. So whenever you lay an outlet structure pipe, there's usually gravel around the edges. So water somehow got around the structure, got to the gravel, followed the gravel out. So basically, instead of being held inside, it followed that and basically caused a small seep, kind of like the dam story in yeah, you get a small little hole. If you don't hold it, it's just gonna get worse and worse and worse. And so what happened was the whole thing basically washed out. So in our submittal, one of the first pictures you can see, if you want more commissions, you can actually see, you can actually see through the berm, showing that we actually had, so you can see that the top of the berm was actually frozen solid.
The top held.
So the top held. So you can see that the conditions that we had, where we had a frozen berm, which probably caused a compromise between the structure and the berm itself. So we had a berm that was partially frozen, and then the joint between the connection between the concrete and that frozen ground was probably the point that actually caused water to seep around it and go through it. And that point was basically opened up because of the inside not being finished loamed and seeded. And then again, and then the surprise that it would hold all summer long, but then it would fail this time. So what happened? So basically it washed out here, and then it went down through the buffer zone here. So most of the sediment got trapped in the buffer zone right above the stone wall. There's a stone wall that kind of follows the property line down here, and the wetland is just below the stone wall. So the stone wall acted almost like a check dam. There's some low depressions there where it caught a lot of sediment. So in that area, there were some spots where it might have been 2 inches, and then otherwise it was just trace where it had spread out. And then there were points where it did actually get through the stone wall, where there were lower spots of the
Is that
stone
what you're
wall.
referencing photo 6 on page 5? Just so we can carry the narrative as you're
Yes.
kind of going
Yep.
through the photos. Okay.
So you'll see the stone wall there.
Is that, as a point of reference, is that the same place that we had a breach before?
No.
No.
Not.
So this we've never had any sediment get beyond.
Okay.
There's been buildup against the wattles,
Yeah.
but we've never had anything get into the buffer zone in this area. And we do have good leaf cover on the ground, which we believe is actually going to be good for actually removal, because the leaves will help us actually remove the sediment as quickly as possible. So that's basically what happened with the sediment. So we had a wattle installed along the edge of the basically wherever we could install it along the ponded section below the stone wall. So we put it as far down as we possibly could. It's
have
actually
a
not.
photo of that?
We don't actually have pictures. Amy has. She might have some. So she
And
did.
there are two different set of photos
Of the
going around.
water-
so-
of the wattles.
Yeah, that's.
Yep. So we did install that preemptively, and then Amy did go out and see it as well. So it's been installed. It's been installed right down here, basically following the edge of any ponding, anywhere we could capture sediment. It's been installed.
Yep.
So basically, it's going to prevent any sediment movement any further towards the wetlands or in the wetlands themselves, where it's actually gone down below
What
the
does it
stone
look
wall.
like today?
So right now, there's still a little bit of patchy snow cover, but most of the leaves are exposed. But it's frozen partially, and it's partially defrosted. I mean, we're looking at possibly tomorrow afternoon being a window of time to possibly get to some of the sediment, because we're going to actually have warm enough temperatures to actually.
It's supposed to be raining though tomorrow.
Yeah, I think it might be sliding.
That's
Well,
where.
I mean, it's worthy.
That's
Okay.
where
We
we have
afraid
basically.
that
I
it
mean,
might go more.
because it's warm tomorrow, we're going to be checking it twice, because our two concerns are, one, making sure the wattle is as installed as properly as
What's the
possible.
temperature for tomorrow?
It was installed.
Like 40s, low 40s.
Low 40s.
But it's supposed to warm up during the weekend. Cold on Thursday, then warm up again.
It's be warm tomorrow.
Yeah. Sorry, tomorrow's 53.
So I mean that's
56 on
so
Wednesday.
I mean the plan is, I mean, we're first of all we're concerned basically of making sure that it doesn't move. So that's our primary concern. We don't want it to move any further than it already has. So I mean, we're going to be checking the wattle tomorrow twice, just because we want to make sure that if we can get it better settled on top of the ground, we want to make sure it's installed correctly there. And then our goal is to as we can, as soon as possible, maybe like tomorrow, we'll be working on probably the wetland edge and working our way up. And as we work our way clean up, we'll take the wattle and move it up with us. So basically, as we work up the slope, we bring the wattle up as far as we clean, we reinstall it where we stop. So we can slowly, basically, take this and slowly bring it back into that area there.
And have you stabilized where it broke through?
So yeah, the berm has been backfilled. We do now have an orifice in the structure with gravel around it. We have a mulch berm around the inside, and then we have some other. Again more controls on the outlet structure as well.
Too as well on the flared end on
Yeah,
the outside.
a mulch,
as
a
well.
mulch, a mulch berm there, and then
Stone.
the other basin we've also added additional mulch inside and outside the structure itself, so that if there's any more flow there.
How much frost is in that ground there?
And the level.
How much frost? I mean, again, it
There was
looks
at
like a
least
one.
a foot. You can see in the picture what held up was all just frost.
But you dug there yesterday or today? I'm talking about like.
Well, they didn't really
Right
dig.
now,
They-
it's probably a foot
they-
in
I mean,
any exposed
any
areas.
exposed
A
areas.
little bit more than a foot.
So I mean,
Any-
they didn't
In
really
In the
excavate
woods,
here.
there's not gonna be a
Nothing.
foot with the
Nothing.
trees. It'll be, it's
Just
just
surface
enough
on
that you
the
can't
leaves.
clean up what's there.
And the main thing is if we get enough of a warm temperature, if the leaves loosen up enough, because the leaves, basically we have the sediment, we have the leaves, we have the soil. So if we can get, if there's enough of a warm temperature to get the leaves moving a little bit, we can get the sediment out.
And how do you propose to evacuate it?
So it's going to be
Mostly
all,
buckets, similar to the other, and it's not anywhere near as involved as
The pictures?
The other.
it's not as involved as the impacts that
sediment
occurred
layer is
along the
maybe
cul-de-sac.
an inch on the leaves right now.
Most of it, yeah. So it's from a cleanup standpoint, as I see it, it's a lot easier than the last cleanup. And they've done it before, all by hand. We're not planning on bringing any equipment, any pumps or anything like that into
The
there.
question I think we may have been alluding to with the wattles that are there, and I appreciate wanting to move them as you stage back.
Yep.
Is there any
We can leave-
advantage
we can
to
leave those
leaving
and
them
then
in
get another
case
row.
something else happens down the line? I know that you've redone
We can
the
definitely do that.
reason for it, but I'm just, as
No, we can leave
always.
them.
We'll leave them in
We
place
left similar to
and
what we did down on
establish.
this right here, where
It's
we
just
left
that I
that
think that
row
we've
of hay
had
bales,
this
and that worked great. you know.
freeze thaw.
Yep. Understood.
Yep.
And
So.
bad luck with weather conditions.
Yep. No.
During your.
One other thing we did do was these two basins have never been tied together.
Right.
So we actually cut through the berm that was between the two and put a temporary pipe through
So
it
that you can
to
use
allow
that
the
to do the
basins
other.
to equalize.
Yep.
Because our concern again is if one basin fills faster than the other, it'll equalize to hopefully spread out the capacity
And if we get
add.
stuck where if you have to dewater into it or something.
Yep.
Exactly, and then if we need to dewater, we can actually dewater from here in this place, and we'll drain into this basin here. We've established a corridor of hay bales in the field per Amy's request for dewatering. We've got pumps on site, we've got hoses on site in the warm houses, so they're basically ready to go. If we can pump, we bring them out. We set up the pumps, we run them until we can't with the colder temperatures.
Quick question on your pipe that you just put in. Can you have it so if an emergency, we can cap one end or
Yeah,
both? So if we have
ends,
to-
it just, because it's got
So
the
you have the
gasket on one
material
side.
so that you can.
Yeah, we could buy a cap. Yeah, we don't have
buy
one, we can buy
a
one.
cap with a gasket. There's a gasket on one side, so you
Yeah,
can
I
just
think
put
if
it
we
in.
can have that on site, because if you do need to move from, if we have to dewater into one, we know it's gonna be dirty and we don't wanna put it in the other.
Mm.
Yep.
So if we can just get those caps.
Yep. And so it'll be a cap only on one end. 'cause
Yeah, we
it's
don't always
one
wanna be
gasket, but still,
reactionary, so it's
it'll-
nice to have some of those
Yep.
things there.
So, and then I was out on site this morning to check the wattle, and I mean, we're getting about, they're saying heavy downpours tomorrow.
Saying
Yeah, an inch of rain. So, I mean, the main thing is, I mean, the basins will hold the inch of water,
Yeah,
which
they're
is the main
down.
concern is, my main concern is any runoff getting over the areas that have sediment already, because we don't want them to move. If it's
So
just,
do you have other areas preemptively in the morning that you're gonna have to roll out more irrigation, erosion measures? So whether it's more hay bales or?
This side right here, I mean, last weekend, this side over here, the pond was everything. There was no sediment going into the wetlands like before.
You've got a lot of capacity?
It could get pumped down. I mean, there was a lot of ice in there. It hasn't, I mean, it's,
Basin one is pretty full.
basin one's full, but it's frozen. I mean, there's probably a foot of ice in it right now. So, and it's also a temporary basin still. We're still using it as a temporary basin. There's no,
I'm just thinking an inch of rain
Yeah.
on top of that, where's that gonna go? Is it gonna go over?
I mean, I can pump it down in the morning as
Well,
long as I
okay,
can.
I'm just saying, where are you gonna pump out to?
We,
Rent that catch basin.
which one? Up to this one?
Into that catch basin there and let it go, if you put a silt sack in there?
I have a silt sack in there.
And that's not gonna go anywhere down to the wetlands.
It's gonna go in the overflow pipe if it's clean water.
It'll filter, it'll have to filter through the erosion control and through buffer zone into the wetlands, so, I mean, it's a discharge that will be monitored, it'll be monitored when they turn it on, they run it.
I think that's a very important question to have now while the commission is all here. Do you want to authorize that in the morning? Because when you look at, if we do have an inch of rain, and if this is you're referring to one is already at capacity, we're gonna go over that, and then we're gonna have erosion down below that, correct?
No, because it goes out the top of the structure, it goes in the pipe and goes out the flared end with the riprap already there, and then below that is wattle, hay bale, silt fence.
So new precipitation can get to
Inside
that discharge.
inside all the structures now are, we have silt sacks inside each one of these structures everywhere. So.
Yeah, it's not, we're not pumping, we're not just doing a direct discharge into the buffer zone. It's going through the silt sack, it's going through wattles, the hay bales, and the silt fence before it gets
So I
anywhere.
guess what we're trying to get at is, do you think you need to dewater ahead of the storm? Because you have to have
I mean, I could
permission to do so.
dewater it in the morning. I could turn the pump on in the morning and dewater it.
Wouldn't hurt.
It wouldn't hurt it, and it's an easy. I mean, there's maybe. You know, it would go down in an
Thinking
hour.
a little bit for a little capacity?
That's pretty dirty in there, isn't it? Because I know the inlet to that has a lot of sediment in it, sitting in it. And all I can picture right now, there's probably pictures of it, I can just picture the ice on top.
Yeah.
If you put it in a bucket and you're not pulling the bottom water, if you
Yeah.
put it in
Yeah,
a
you
cleaned
definitely
up
wanna make
stone.
sure you're not sucking off the bottom.
It's
yeah.
been used as a temporary basin for the last 8 months. I mean, you know, we're starting to get, you know, I mean, the ground's frozen, so you're not getting a lot of runoff from the lots where it's getting the silt coming off the lots with the ground already frozen. So
Is
the
there
water
any-
that's going
is
in
there
it
anything
now
discharging in it right now directly into it?
to that temporary pond, yeah, all the structures
all the
tied,
road.
all the roads tied into it.
Because that's gonna get.
At the lowest
it's
point
gonna
on the
break up
road,
yeah.
I have silt sacks with stone around it.
I think if you're gonna dewater, you'd only be able to do it in the morning if
Yeah.
there's not a lot of rain coming off the street into those catch basins.
I mean, again, tomorrow is gonna be, we're gonna be out there the first thing in the morning to check conditions, to make sure, I mean, we'd wanna bring this basin down. We would be checking these basins to see if we could pump anything. If we can pump anything tomorrow morning, we're gonna pump where we can to where we can confirm we can have a clean, filtrated discharge. I mean, if we have to figure out where we can pump further away, because we can't let it go here, then we will, because we can't do that. I mean, we
So
don't
what I would ask is
propose
when
any
you're
discharges.
out on site,
salty.
Amy, are you in tomorrow morning?
Yep.
To just call straight off and give her, kind
I
of
can
like
take some pictures-
situational
I can take
analysis
some
and
pictures
say,
of it and send them
this is
over
what
to
we
her.
see and this is
Yep.
what we wanna do, so that way we're aware of what the morning would look like.
Yes, I mean, that's for this, I mean, this basin here, again, if there's any water, we've got the use set up. This is where we've done historic dewatering, and we haven't had any issues there, and we had the hay bales in place as well.
I think it's unique that we've got sections that are frozen and sections that aren't in the tree cover as well.
Yeah.
Yeah, I mean, this field area right there, so there's maybe 2 or 3 inches of frost in the grassed area. In the disturbed areas, there's feet, in some cases 2 feet.
And that's some pretty heavy-duty grass in that field, so
Yeah.
that's gonna be like where the Durkee was pumping, it's outside the buffer zone, so it's got a long way to go.
Yeah.
So that's a good
It's done a
spot.
very good job, so we're not, from that point, we're not concerned at all, but.
Yeah.
Because the outlet to Basin 3 at the end of the long culvert was getting some sediment on top of the leaves. Nothing
Oh, down here.
way down, yeah.
Down here.
Oh,
Where Mark's pointing.
oh, that's structure 70 down there, yeah.
But I don't think that was from the dewatering.
No, it wasn't from the dewatering, it was, I assume it was from Basin 3. And it's not a lot, it hasn't gotten very far, but I just keep a real eye on it.
Yeah.
Especially if you're putting 4 into 3 and then 3
We
is.
did put additional stone around this the other day, too. You did some
Yep.
stone,
Yeah.
and we put extra stump grinders around that.
Do you have material on site?
Yep. We have additional stump grinders, we have stone. I have 2 pumps. We have 2 pumps.
And were you able to do any stabilization at the corner? There's that little area where it's getting past the,
Right
right
here?
in there somewhere, yeah.
It was wicked icy this morning. We were gonna do it, but it was
Yeah,
the actual
yeah.
ground was frozen and ice, and I didn't feel comfortable having, you know, we were all on site, and I asked, you know, and I was like, it's kind of icy.
Is that something you can address in the morning?
We can. I can use my skid steer. It's a little smaller. I have a little bit of traction, you know.
What lot is that? Is that like?
That's lot 13, 14.
Yeah.
And that's just out the flared end. That's getting, you know, that's getting a lot of this water that's coming down right through here from the cross culvert.
It wasn't that area, it was,
Or was it right here?
yeah, it was more like up in here.
Okay, so then it's coming
Yeah,
down
more
right
like
here?
12.
Right on the very corner?
Yeah,
Okay, so, yeah, and that's easy enough too.
it wouldn't take much.
No, I mean, we probably have 100 yards of stump
Yeah, it was
groundings.
getting by there, there was a lot of stump groundings there. It was getting over that? It was like 2 feet of stump
It had found
grounding.
its way through.
Okay.
Yeah, we can put additional stump groundings right there.
It wasn't more than the size of this table that had gotten through, but it's a good time to stop it.
Okay, yep, I can get that
So
first
it
thing in the morning.
sounds like, circling back, there's 3 areas that we focus on, 4 areas in the morning.
Yep.
Yep. And again, we're not just checking in the morning, we'll be checking in again in the
No,
afternoon, because
obviously,
we're
We're
in
on
high
site the
alert.
whole time.
We're in high alert for tomorrow, to make sure that we watch everything that could possibly, because we have areas that are concerned, and we're gonna check everything else too, because we don't wanna have any other issues.
Okay, we appreciate you coming in.
Thank you.
All right, thank you.
Thanks.
I actually have one more.
Oh, sorry.
I'm sorry.
And I've got something else
Question.
before you take
okay.
off.
Have you walked like downstream this way just to
I
double
haven't
check?
actually-
You know that Oak Road
Yep.
stream observation? I just wanted to.
I've actually walked down here, then I go, and then I stop over at the crossing of 119,
Yep,
and then I went down to the Down Powers Road
yep.
at that, where they reconstruction that bridge. So
Oh,
that
yeah.
ties in with there, and I actually did that Saturday afternoon, and there was no sediment or any coloration in there.
Maybe worth it tomorrow just to make
I
sure.
think anytime that you're down there to just take a photo, if you show nothing
Yep.
coming off there.
I've
just-
done it a
just-
couple times, and, you know, we've, you know.
For
you know,
yourself, just keep
Yep.
taking pictures and note
Yep.
the date and time on that.
Excellent.
Amy, you had one
you.
other?
You have a occupancy permit you wanna
We're
get
looking
signed
for
off
an
on soon?
occupancy permit for Lot 5, and I think you can probably address that.
Well,
Ms.
the way
Janfield.
I understand it, if I'm reading it correctly, is it really, the work isn't completely done, so you won't be releasing it. It's just a kind of a transferring. Lot 5 specifically would go into the owner's name. Is that what your standard practice is?
So you're looking for a partial.
Well,
Because there's actually, there's
I-
2 layers of,
You can't issue a certificate of compliance.
because there's
on
still.
this.
No,
But-
it's not done, right? I mean,
Can I sign off on an occupancy permit?
for one house.
Yeah.
There's also 2 layers of order conditions. One was for the ponds, the road construction, the sewer main, and that is all further away from the order condition for each individual house. We still understand that, you know, it's winter time. I can't get loam down. I can't, you know, I can't seed it, or, you know, there was some bushes that we had to plant as well.
What's coming after this? Do you anticipate that there's many right down the pike that
No,
you're gonna
I
be
think-
asking for that before spring?
We
No,
have
I don't
4
think any
houses
4.
under construction right now, so this is the first house that will sell, and it actually does border the wetlands, and like, so we have a requirement to put some blueberry bushes and some signage, and those
There's
are,
only 2 houses that will be ready for occupancy before spring.
This and another one?
Yes.
You said they border the wetland?
Lot
Lot
4
5 does.
and Lot 5. All the other houses under construction are in roughs. They're gonna be 2, 3 months, 4 months out.
And again, the
Inventory, yeah.
overlaying order conditions for the sewer main and everything else is still in place, which is behind all the houses.
And
Sewer
that-
main doesn't plant the bushes, though.
No, but we still have to, you know, we still have to address.
We're not asking for a certificate of compliance. So,
Address cleaning out basins, you know, once this road's in, you still have to clean out the basin because it's been used as a temporary basin. So we still have to have, you know,
So I think where I was going with the question is what's coming down the pike, because I certainly don't want, I don't want to set a precedence that we're saying yes, and that means carte blanche to everything else. We need to have something, you have to kind of be held to your duty.
Yes.
And so it's not our obligation to chase you in the spring to do X, Y, Z
No.
for that. So that's our concern.
I'm a little bit
So-
concerned about issuing us or supporting occupancy permit when we have.
So you could make
We
it
have
so that
ongoing
the
issues.
new owner has to come in, you have to
Similar
show,
to
you
when
have
we
to
sold
show,
lots.
similar to what we did with Newtown, that the new owner has to come in, you have to meet
Yeah,
with
but this
them.
is a situation where they have ongoing issues with.
But not in that area.
No.
I cleverly went out there and looked at it this afternoon, but I looked
What's
at
that?
house number 5, not lot 5. So I
Have you
forget
been
what,
out to that area?
I went out this afternoon, but I went to the wrong house. I went to house number 5 instead of lot 5.
What's the timing?
We were supposed to close on Wednesday, but this is like, paperwork stuff that we have to get through.
And are you indemnifying them for the certificate of compliance, for the, how's that working?
Well, no, we're held up until we have this straightened out.
Well, you won't be
The
getting
other thing is, we also
certificate of compliance for months.
we can have.
So there's an order of conditions for the entire project, and that obviously has nothing, we just need for that one specific lot.
Because there's two order of conditions. One was issued for the road construction,
Like
which
there's
is
one that
for the
references
sewer
lot
mains,
But that,
all the construction behind the houses. And then there was the order of conditions for each individual house.
house, correct.
So when we sold lots, the owners
So
of the
you're
lots
asking
had
for
to
the
come in
one
or.
specific to the house, but
Yes.
not to the road.
Right.
I can give you the exact number, Amy, I could put it in an email to you, the order of conditions that reference.
Oh, no, it was literally when I went out there, I was thinking house number 5, not lot 5. I know which one it is, but
It's the blue house.
I am not sure, but I don't think you're ready to issue a certificate of compliance on any of these.
No, there's no,
So-
we're not asking for a
So you're
certificate
gonna be
of
selling
compliance.
it with the order of conditions still
Because they're
open.
valid for
So
2
are you
years.
indemnifying the new owner?
Yes.
That if.
Yep, we have an
If the
agreement with
slope
them,
washes
they
out,
can
it's on
issue.
you.
It's not the homeowner's responsibility, yeah.
We're
That's
responsible.
where the question was coming
Because
in.
the occupancy permit needed the signs installed.
Yep.
Was
Yep.
one of them, and the other one was the homeowners association. Text needed to be recorded. Had that, and I lost track, had that happened?
Yes.
Yes.
Okay, because I sent an email back to Jennifer saying I couldn't remember that. Those are the two things that were tied to the occupancy permit specifically.
So it sounds like they're done.
Well,
Well,
they're-
the signage was ordered today, so he said he's gonna try to get it by tomorrow. So,
So would the commission want to see the language that we've worked out with the Lot 5 owner, just so that the commission can see that?
Yeah.
that-
Amy would need, the
Yes.
file would need that,
Yeah,
Amy would need that.
just so that, just for clarification on why the occupancy is requested and what's in place to make sure that we're responsible for everything, because we recognize that we are responsible and we want to make sure that everything is tidy up in the back, because we don't want, we recognize that we're responsible for those areas.
Well, can we make a motion that we have Amy sign the occupancy permit when the signs come and are installed?
and after I can let you know like what time.
You would have, so
whatever.
we would have to discuss that, because that
TikTok.
would be a motion, so how do the
So I
commissioners
would.
feel about that? So that's a discussion.
I would
that-
still have concerns about your original question of having, how many of these will be coming forward, and we don't want to set a precedent for approving these things and all of a sudden
So, and
have
that's why
3, 4,
we would
5 all
ask
coming
for
at us.
What you would know the timing, because
'Cause that
I think
gets-
what you're
that
hearing
gets
from the
really
commission, that it's not going to be a carte blanche, that we need to, and we're going into, we're really in winter. So we would need to make sure it's stabilized. Obviously, plantings are not gonna go in until spring.
Well, but from what Amy said, there are only 2 conditions for the occupancy permit that have to be done, and they've met one of them, and the other one has to be the sign. So according to the order.
Well, that's the minimum requirements to get an occupancy. I mean,
We had high.
if there were serious issues on lot 5, I don't think you'd be issuing an occupancy permit.
Right.
But there don't appear to be serious conditions on lot 5.
That's a lot right there.
So I'd like to make a motion that we do that we say that once the signs are in and installed, that Amy can go make sure that that's happened, and then sign the occupancy permit for
So,
that.
Also,
If the
wait,
signs
but
are
to-
in-
but to, but, no, but
She
to
just
wait,
has-
no, but wait, so another thing is that Amy needs to go and make sure that the site is in stable condition. So that obviously, if it looks as though it's unstable, then I would say we would need to wait. But I would certainly let the agent be able to look at that.
Mhm.
So if you
Yep.
see that there's blowouts or
Yeah.
that there's going to
We
be.
were out there, I was out there today.
So which lot is it?
That was the
Blue House, Carl, where you and I were standing.
on Saturday.
Isn't where the sod was behind?
Yes,
Yes,
that's
that's
where the sod. Yep. Yep.
Just the conditions weren't good enough to spread the sod, so.
But what, wasn't that slope was getting precarious
I
back
I
there?
reseeded it and.
And it was getting, and the silt fence was starting to get,
Behind the silt fences, there's a row of.
I was a little
hay
bit
bales
worried
and then-
about that area, to be honest
So
with
there's a
you.
secondary behind it,
So there's a silt fence, hay bales, wattle.
and
And
are
it-
they at capacity?
Yes.
Like where you have them all, do
Yeah,
we need to say,
they're at
prior to
capacity.
going, can we just go ahead, clean that up? And get it?
I
and
was
get it-
con- I was
Like
cons-
to, what we call a refresh.
It was being
I can
held.
refresh it and.
You said it looked good though.
No, I'm gonna say, it was holding. This is the discussion. I didn't say it looked good, I said it's
We
holding.
need to now get through to.
I said.
spring.
That
I
wasn't,
s-
this is the house right there, right? I'm
Yes.
looking at the
Yep,
back.
yep,
Okay,
yep.
I was in the right
Well,
place.
what it was doing is the silt fence was doing its job. It was holding the slope. There was no slough over. However, if you, and we talked about this also, if you started to look at the slope, you could see there was like little rivulets going down through it. And,
Okay.
and part of the discussion was, you had, and the consultant was on site, that they really needed to keep their eye on this thing, and, because I could
No,
see
I'll
that.
look-
This-
So
this-
it sounds
this-
like
this whole- this whole
that's item
thing,
number
this whole
6
slope
for
could go
tomorrow
down.
morning is to really look at the refresh.
The whole slope could go down at any given moment. So it has to be, I mean, that was my kind of feeling when I looked at it.
Well, Michael, I met you out there the first time I went out, and we were staying at Basin when I looked down, see, that area needs refreshing. It
Yeah.
hasn't caused a problem yet, but it's behind.
Yeah, it's actually
you-
more towards lot 6. And I went over there today and I got some of the vines, the dead tree, I don't know, what's that vine called again?
The bittersweet.
The bittersweet. We took some of that down when we were putting the force main out back, and it just, it just, I mean, yeah, the silt fence
Carl,
needs to be
I would ask
addressed.
that you
I'm a little
let Amy,
concerned
well,
about
Amy,
that.
I think that Amy, I'm around tomorrow, that if Amy
I think we might be
wants me
putting
to
a
go back out, I can, if you want 2 commissioners to do it, one of us can go out.
Maybe after whatever rain happens.
Or we can go out tomorrow morning.
I'm happy to go out tomorrow morning, so that way takes the pressure off Amy.
Yeah.
But we're looking for the signs, gonna check the site is stable, you're gonna get me the indemnification language.
Yep.
Wasn't there something else?
The corner of lot 13.
Do you need to see the recorded information on the association?
Oh, the association.
Yeah, the homeowners association.
Yeah,
Is that
I
something we need?
I couldn't find it.
She'll need
I should have it, but
They
if you
did
can
it,
send it to
so
me,
Amy
that'd be.
needs to get it.
Yeah, we'll send it to you, just so you don't have to go find it.
Yeah.
It didn't pop up when I first looked for it this afternoon, but,
It's funny the way they recorded it. I'll send you the book and page and recorded document.
yeah.
Oh, so you're gonna meet out there, look at,
So let me ask you this, what I would say is, in the morning, you look at that, and you look honestly and say, okay, we know it has to be refreshed, you refresh it, and then Amy and I can come out.
Yep.
If you think it's good to go,
Yep.
then call Amy, and we can go out and verify that.
Yep.
So, but
Yeah,
we ask that you don't waste our
essentially,
time, I'm not
Yeah,
gonna tell
oh,
you
I
twice.
agree.
It's 100 feet of,
Yeah. But you know what I'm
Yeah.
saying, so
I know what
if
it
you.
was, yeah.
Yeah, if I mean, again, if it has to get, if sediment has to get removed,
Yep.
it's supposed to get removed, because that's what's listed in the order of conditions and standard
It's actually-
conditions. And
it's
then
actually
if the
a
slopes
row-
above it need to be
remember we
stabilized
put
with bolts. we
stump
can do
grindings
that as
right up
well.
against the hay bales?
Yeah, that
So-
whole slope had stump grindings before we
Right,
did the
so
sewer.
it has stump grindings,
Okay.
actually.
We will check
hay
it,
bales.
we will check it tomorrow.
We gotta keep going, so we still got things to do, but, just let us know.
Okay,
in the
we'll give
morning.
you a call in the morning.
I'll have my boots this time.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Thank you so much for your time.
So in his motion, is that
So,
Oh, yeah.
Yep, so we'll go back to, Anna, your motion was
that we
that Anna
say
would-
that Amy could sign the certificate of occupancy if she agrees that the site is stable and that,
And I go
and
out
that the
as
signs.
You need to go out, you need to go out and look at it.
So,
She-
that's,
Amy
so,
plus
do we,
at least one
My
commissioner.
gut
so
feeling.
do we have a second on that?
It's not.
Second.
Okay, all those in favor?
Aye.
Aye. Any opposed? Abstentions, no. Okay. Okay, so,
How you guys doing?
I'm sorry. So,
I'm
you
amazed.
can come up, here's the deal, you guys gave us a list of things you'd like to talk about. I'd like for you to either do a brief overview or to pick one that you'd like to discuss, and we'll give you 10 minutes, because we still have to go into executive session. Okay.
Yeah, okay.
So which topic are you gonna choose?
Number one, yeah.
Okay,
We
Great.
have two events coming up.
okay.
W Valley Trustees is going to have a Trail Fest in June. And
Do you want to come up, so, sorry, the mics don't pick up that far away.
And we have the Hidden Treasures, Freedom's
If you
Way
can
Hidden
just, sorry, if we
Treasures.
can just start again for the conversation, just introduce yourself for the microphone.
Jim O'Neill, Littleton Conservation Trust,
We're gonna be discussing the Yap
the
Conservation
Yap
Land.
Conservation Land. We have,
Are you doing a brief of?
No, just that one.
okay.
Yep.
We have the Littleton Historical Society and the trust is co-sponsoring the Freedom's Way event in May, I believe, May 19th.
Right, and typically you've co-sponsored it too, as you've done in the past. We like the same thing.
And Sudbury Valley Trustees wants to hold an event there in June on Trail Day, National Trail Day. The problem there is the parking area. It's just like a mud bowl.
Yep.
It usually dries out by May,
But it's-
but if there's any rain, an inch or
It's
two
used
of
and it's
rain prior.
farmland, so it wasn't
prior-
usually used in the wintertime and early spring.
So we were wondering if there's any way we could get the town to fill or grade it.
Did you bring a, map of the parking lot that we can submit, or an area that you think is in more dire need? I don't feel as though it's appropriate, so just say, hey, can you go in and grade it and do it all? So we want to be able to have something that can be presented to them.
Yeah, it's actually your land, so it's your map.
Yeah, it's just a parking area by the kiosk, so I can,
I mean, a photograph is
something-
enough, almost, it's closed off now, so people don't go in there.
Yep.
Yeah.
But in terms of the scope of what is the area that you're looking for them to grade, and how much
Material.
material are you looking for in that area?
And maybe gravel.
well, we don't know. I was hoping the town would be able to answer that question, what would be necessary there to mitigate the mud bowl.
Has anyone approached them to ask them about that at all? Or are you looking for us to?
No.
No,
do
we
that?
have,
I
they've
was
been
hoping
helping
to-
us with the grading going into it, but they haven't,
Once again, it's your land, so.
Yeah, okay.
I don't know, maybe Amy could approach Chris Stoddard and ask if there's a possibility of helping us out with that.
We're certainly, in the commission of support of having Amy generate a request letter for a conversation about that?
Yes.
Absolutely.
Okay.
Yeah.
So
I mean,
can
we
ask-
have got a perfect day tomorrow.
Who's
to
paying
see
for the gravel? That's
tomorrow as you drive by,
Yeah,
just take a look in
exactly.
there,
Take
just
a-
get an idea.
I think if we can see the ability or intent, if they have time to do that, then they could look and see
Yeah.
how much would be needed, and then we would know financially what we would be looking at. And then if commissioners have an opportunity to just scoot out there so that they can look at the low areas as well. But I do want to get back to the co-hosting request that you made for Freedom's Way. Tell us what you're looking for with that.
It's very similar to what was done for the Proudy Woods, which, once again, where you have a CR on, and what we did for Oak Hill, which is also your land.
Yeah.
It's for it's for hikes and maybe a tent setup with the displays.
It's
Very,
gonna
very
be-
similar to what's been
It's
done.
going to be celebrating agriculture, though, because it'll be that and the Cobb property, so we'll be doing the chickens plus the farm.
And we'd probably have
So
Brook Rock.
by co-hosting, what does that mean?
I'll
put
go
your
to some
name.
meetings for you.
You get to put your little insignia or something
Yeah,
down in the
and-
corner. and-
So if Jim were sitting here, does it cost us money?
Oh, no. Right, that's a typical Jim question. It's like in the past, you haven't paid anything.
Okay,
Um,
so you want, okay. So
Put out a poster, we try to put all the communities, organizations that co-host it. But also it'd probably be, I don't know if you issue a permit as you've done in the past, but, it'd be an event that you'd be doing as well, in name, but,
Okay.
and would drag a
we
name.
try and get
or-
that on the website as well.
Well,
Weren't you gonna rewrite the?
We were fine until
do that
website.
now, so, yeah, I can put it up there.
Good.
Website
Andrew's going
lessons.
to the meetings and updating the website.
well,
Okay.
that's true, he has been to the meeting, so, yeah, you have a
Okay.
good connection.
So are we all in support of co-hosting the Freedom's Way Hidden Treasures event on Saturday, May 19th?
Yes.
Yes.
And then for SVT, in support of their Trail Fest at Yap on National Trail Days, June 2nd.
Yes.
That's
Is
great.
that still up in the air? Have they decided?
I think it's going to happen, but just to fill you in a little bit, they hold it in different areas, so 34 communities. And they'll actually probably come before you for a permit, because what they do, not only do they have walks, but they also charge an admission, but they have entertainment and music. So I don't know how that works. Yeah, I don't know how it works, but they've done this in other
Had that
communities.
discussion before.
I think
Well-
can't you like incur liability if you charge admission?
Let
Well,
us-
they have very good coverage, and they have a lot of lawyers, too. But
It's our property.
it's something they'll have to do to come with you. We'll help them
So,
out, but
okay, if
We'll
you could
just
give us a
straighten that
heads
out.
up if they're coming in, then
Yeah.
there's gonna be.
I'll
Well,
ask
Please
them.
don't make it last minute, we don't
Right.
wanna be in a pressure to have to make a decision.
Well,
So
especially-
they need to come in for a land use permit.
Yeah.
They do, and then if we have to ask for a limited liability release or something.
Yeah.
that's-
So
SVT can release the town from liability.
Yeah, that's why we're raising the issue now, so at least
We
you have
appreciate
a head up on it.
Sarah, on both of those, I was wondering if, I've been meaning to get over to look, but to go into those two house lots, the tax title lots
Mhm.
that have been added, that may provide access to the big back flat field, which may be the
That should
best
be the
place for parking.
That should be the most parking for
Yes.
all of that. That should have been the
Exactly.
parking for that whole place.
Yes.
So I'll look into that, but I may have to
right.
break some walls to get people through. I have no idea what this.
No.
You can talk to SVT about breaking walls.
Yeah, no, you won't have to. You can walk through, so you could park out back and just, you can walk right
Or you
through.
can do the long drive, but I was just saying, come in directly into that field off of
Right.
that.
You can't
those
walk through,
lots.
it's hard to walk through that wall.
You
There's
can
not an
walk
easy
through, but you
gap.
can't drive through it. You can walk through that.
No, it would have to be, we would have to say that that's an amenity that we want. So
Yeah.
get in some big equipment to
Yeah, yeah.
redo the wall and
But I think
establish a
that you would
break.
have to ask selectmen ahead of time in a letter to use that as parking.
Uh-huh.
Because there's a couple
their land.
stumps and things like that that we want to identify.
Would you want to use that for June, or is
Yeah, I'm
that?
not actually wanting to use, I don't want to use the tax title parcel itself. I just want to use the access from there to get through to the big field out back. And then use just the end of the big field
Well,
for
unfortunately,
a
it's
few
not our
rows of
jurisdiction,
parking
So
there.
you have to ask the selectmen.
Yeah, one of the good things is that YAP is getting used more and more.
Oh, yeah.
It's a focal point, and their trails will lead off.
Absolutely.
So with fixing the parking lot and so on, is all very positive, get much more use.
I think if you can incorporate that, the land title, that would be great. Okay, sorry to cut you short. but
Okay.
we
Have fun,
appreciate it.
guys.
And you do know Jim O'Neill is the director of stewardship, so, this is his memo, and
We like it.
we're here to protect him, but,
All right, thank you.
Nice meeting you all.
Thank you.
And we need to talk about the CRs at some point. Not
No,
now,
in
but we,
general.
yeah.
Sarah, are we planning to wear waders
for
on
grant for
that
the Yap
sidewalk, or are we
property?
just gonna go as far as we can and?
For yaps,
Grant.
for yap.
I would, yeah, no, I wouldn't.
I don't have
I wouldn't go
waders.
through it. You know, you-
Yeah, it might be in the
pretty
file, I don't
dangerous
know.
if there's ice under the
Because
water.
it's
Just
not
tall
There's a
balls.
way
like
that you
Yeah.
come up and you can look all through
I
that.
think if people have ski poles or hiking sticks, you should bring them.
Yeah.
Which is our land.
Yeah. We touched base on that stuff, yeah.
okay.
Just figure
Okay, thank you.
Good night.
Thank
Yep.
you.
I'll get those reports in soon.
That's Wednesday, right?
Yeah.
Wednesday. Amy, before I forget, can you tomorrow send out a reminder for 4:30 Wednesday and that we're gonna meet at 63 Great Road?
Yep.
So, before we go into executive session, we need to close this hearing, correct?
No, if you read that, you'll say, and you move not to come back into it and close the meeting, so it's all part of the.
The commission has determined to convene an executive session for the purpose of discussing strategy with respect to the following litigation concerning 6 Cottage Way in Littleton. Because doing so in an open session may have a detrimental effect on the commission's litigating position, known as McDonald versus Littleton Conservation Commission, Middlesex Superior Court, also known as in the matter of Kristen Kozokis, Mass DEP, Office of Appeals and Dispute Resolution. Conservation Commission has moved to convene into executive session for these purposes and not to convene an open session after the conclusion of the executive session. That is my motion. May I have a second?
Seconded.
Okay. We need to vote, take an official roll vote of who is in favor.
Carl.
Yes.
Rachel.
Yes.
Andrew. Julie.
Aye.
Sarah.
Yes.
Anna.
Yes.
Good, because I already wrote down yes.